Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-splaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me today is a very special guest, attorney Ron Coleman. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Without my ears, apparently. Interesting development. All right.
Yes.
I'm ready for that.
your green screen witchery is showing through.
It's worth it though, believe me. The look behind me. Talk about getting demonetized.
Oh no. Let's not talk about that. Let's not do it. It's happening to all of my friends all over the place.
We don't even joke like that.
No. It's also happening to two harmless YouTubers who just make an infinite amount of money. They just had a couple videos demonetized and were literally crying about it. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Just a couple of videos, not their whole channel.
No, it was like 2 weeks worth of videos that had already hit their like 95% views that they'll ever have threshold, and then but then they made it out like their channel was over. That's a whole long story, but it was a beautiful thing to behold because they were crying on camera, and it always gets to me.
All right, I'm going to bring my ears back, and you can handle the room divider, I think.
Oh, that's not so bad.
No, I took care of that. Yeah.
The background, I mean, it's mildly racist, I guess, which is hence the demonetization, but
only mildly.
Well, you got to work on it.
Okay, we'll work on it. Yeah.
So Ron Coleman is not from a small law firm in central Minnesota. You are actually part of a pretty high profile firm, and
but not that big. Not that big. Not as big, maybe a little bit bigger than yours, to be fair.
Yeah, but the profile is much bigger than mine.
Yes, it's supple and rippling and massive.
Yes. So you are the New York lead attorney for the Dhillon Law Group, according to Wikipedia.
Well, it's true.
Well, that's good. Wikipedia got something right then.
They took down so much Ron Coleman, unless there's something that's been added, but they added. I've been so removed from Wikipedia because I'm not really. I mean, I think there's actually a standing question of whether I'm even worth including an entry on compared to any number of video game characters, and that's okay. No one cares about Wikipedia anymore. But
no,
yes, I am. I'm partners with Harmeet Dhillon, and that's really, it's the right thing for me to be. It's a good place for me to be, doing work that I really like for someone that I really respect and enjoy working with, and never have to actually see because she's in San Francisco. So it's the perfect marriage when you don't have to see the other partner in it hardly at all.
Yeah, and so for those of you who don't know, Harmeet Dhillon's law firm is the one who represented James Damore. It's one of the first cases I covered on this channel. And it's why I'll probably...
She noticed.
Oh, did she?
She's of the opinion that you made a little bit of a career out of that case.
Well, I certainly made no friends at Google on that one. They were immediately sharing my bar card on their internal Google Hangouts and talking about how I should be removed from practice. And it was great. It was great. All because I made fun of the wingless golden dragon and the person who identified as a building. But you know, I found it interesting. That's all.
I think it is interesting. I think you're right.
Yes. So your law firm has represented James Damore, as well as many others. You guys have kind of a history of going after big britches opponents. And I think that's very cool because we need law firms that do that, especially today. And that's what we're here kind of discussing is kind of reining in big tech and talking about how social media is working either in partnership or in proxy with government to frankly trample First Amendment rights. Is that?
Yeah, it's doing just that. You know, a year ago, 6 months ago, maybe not quite. Yeah, 6 months ago, all we could say was it's a free speech issue, but it's not it's a censorship issue. It's a free speech issue, but it's not a First Amendment issue because they're private companies. They're private companies. There are those who are of the opinion that no, even then we should have recognized that there were First Amendment issues. Harmeet and I were decidedly of the opinion that there weren't, and so we're just about every judge that considered it. But there was a line of thought that went that by virtue of Section 230 providing a sort of safe harbor, that you have here now a regulated industry. Whatever it was an interesting academic argument. It wasn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
Now we can say, however, it's a First Amendment issue. And the lovely and talented Jenn Psaki has as much as admitted it. They are throwing down the gauntlet. They're absolutely daring us. And when I say us, I might even really literally mean us, not you and me, with all due respect. You're welcome to play if you want. But we can't say for sure that the lawsuit that we filed on behalf of DC Drano in the Central District of California is related to this open admission by the federal government, which is not a party to that lawsuit, that they are affirmatively and explicitly telling social media what and whom to restrict on social media. But it's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, and that it's an interesting dilemma because as you stated, about 6 months ago, there wasn't enough to do this. There wasn't enough to really make a cause of action. I mean, I've made some of the sort of I guess esoteric arguments or academic arguments about how social media is the new digital public square. Through 230, borrowing from Clarence Thomas, basically, who said, I don't know how we necessarily go about this, but someone should probably try, in one of his dissenting opinions. And it was basically the idea that we're giving them a measure of protection similar to how we protected Telegram providers. And we say, okay, if you've got liability protection or liability immunity, then you may need to consider taking all comers as a common carrier or some other sort of offshoot of that. But even before Thomas was talking about that, there was this idea of the digital public square, and going back to cases like Marsh versus Alabama, which was the I'm sure you're familiar, but it was the case where basically a company owned a whole town and a Jehovah's Witness wanted to distribute pamphlets on a sidewalk, and they said, look, if you own all of the functions of government, then you are effectively a governmental entity in that space, and you must provide First Amendment protections, which that case was finally overruled actually here in Minnesota, thanks to the Mall of America. They really wanted to protect the Canadian or the Iranian expatriate Canadian owned Mall of America. but so we got rid of that. But the principles, I think, are still salient as sort of a conceptual way to look at social media. But up until recently, we haven't actually been able to put together a good cause of action for it. A couple of people have kind of tried, and those lawsuits were immediately dismissed. So what's the big tipping point here?
Well, let me, if you don't mind, I'll take a couple steps back.
Oh, yeah, please.
I do think that the problem with the public square argument was that it was too powerful, and the conservative, there was a gradual retreat from it until it was finally officially overturned. It scared the hell out of the conservative justices. And that's why it's understandable that Justice Thomas, who is not so interested in consensus and is interested in saying what he thinks the truth is.
Right.
It's not surprising that he would raise it, but it had no legs. Alito wasn't buying. Robert sure as hell wasn't buying. And although it might have been interesting to a liberal justice as recently as 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, now that they control the organs of censorship, their ethical concerns about censorship and constitutional concerns about censorship have become extremely situational.
Isn't that amazing?
It's not at all amazing. But what is amazing is what fans they've become of the FBI.
Ah, yes.
And of the State Department and of professionals in government. Oh man, that's amazing.
They're all for it. It's great reading, like Breyer opinions from 2006, and then reading his opinions now, or even just hearing commentary now. Although Breyer's kind of an interesting beast, because they all like tacitly want him to die since he won't retire. They're like, please, will you just get COVID or whatever? Like, can that? I mean, we like you, but you're not leaving.
Can you do for us what Ginsburg did for Trump, except for us?
Right. They're like, or
this is such an old. This is what no, I'm thinking of his clerk. He actually went to Northwestern, the one who actually did retire and was retired for a while. Who am I thinking of? The justice who
Kennedy retired.
No, before Kennedy.
Was it a liberal conservative justice?
Liberal. He was named. He was appointed by a Republican, but he was a
guy. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, how can we forget this? It's embarrassing because he was the Northwestern justice. I went to Northwestern, so he was our guy. But in any event, let me bring us back. Yes, Justice Stevens, right.
That's the chat. Thank you to the chat.
And he did it precisely. So I guess it was Obama. So Obama could appoint a liberal justice who would outlive him, or outlive Obama's time in office. Going back though to the main point, I still think there is actually a very valid consumer protection cause of action here. And unlike some of my friends who I've been playing with this with, we've been playing with this together.
Gotcha. Yes.
Who think that Section 230 needs to be amended in order to do this. I think under the Federal Trade Commission Act, what the platforms do, and this is also this would be the same analysis under the little FTC acts of the respective states. What the platforms do, which is induce. Now, let's start with the following understanding that no one listening to this needs to be told, which is if you have an account on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, you're the product, you're not the customer.
Right.
You induce me to become your product. And you say to me, Ron, come onto Twitter, generate 135,000 followers. You didn't generate them out of nowhere. They were already here, but they spend more time on the platform because you're here. They share it with their friends. They engage more. You're adding value. You're building your identity around it. All this consideration, as we lawyers call it,
and and they're consuming ads under that following of you, which generates direct revenue.
And by the way, here are the rules. There are a bunch of rules. One more thing. We have no intention of sticking by those rules. The rules are a pretext. We'll use them and we'll hide behind Section 2. That's a deceptive practice. And I came this close to getting somebody to let me file that case, and he couldn't get the funding that he thought was going to come his way. Having said all that, the smoking gun that has been presented to us in the O'Handley case through the good offices of the phenomenally historically important institution of Judicial Watch is a whole new kettle of fish.
Right. So let's take just a minute and talk about what you're talking about with the consumer protection laws, because this is what I had been kind of feeling and talking with a few lawyers about, is that, okay, sure, Facebook and Twitter can throw you off or whatever, because it's their platform. They kind of make the rules or whatever. But we keep seeming to forget that even though it's an adhesion contract, the terms of service, it is a binding contract, and their agreement, their promise to you is that as long as you do follow these rules, that you do get to use their product. Like, you get to be a part of this platform and participate openly with it. And so the issue, one of the big issues is that people have said, well, they get to determine their rules. Then they get to, when you violate those rules, you have breached your agreement, and they get to throw you off. The weird thing about that is so different from every other industry is
every other industry. Key words.
Right.
We regulate everything. We regulate everything.
Yeah. Well, it's the other part of it is you never get to find out exactly why you got thrown off. You never get any sort of reason. They don't point at you rarely, I should say, they point at a clause in the contract and say, well, it was this one that you violated. But if you're in some sort of commercial relationship where you're a store and you're buying fish, and then you don't pay for the fish, they say, look, you're in breach. You're 30 days past due. It says if you're in default for 30 days, we give you notice and we sever it. And then you can dispute that or not. But with social media, they just say, well, you broke a rule, and so you're gone. We're the sole determiner of what the rules are. And then you find that, and it's exactly what you're saying. If there's a pretext, or if these terms of service are not an actual binding agreement and therefore are just some sort of pretext, then we have a different question going on. And we have to ask, well, are these then public accommodations rather than contractual agreements? Are they subject to the consumer protection laws of places like Texas, California, Washington, which have pretty strong protections for these sort of deceptive business practices?
New Jersey.
You said New Jersey too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have noticed specific cases in Texas, California, and Washington, but I'm sure there are plenty of others. And yeah, so we've got this different avenue. The question I have for that is, there's a way to read 230 that says they are immune from liability from all civil litigation, stemming from the removal of content from their service. So how does, even though there's sort of this, these concepts that go, okay,
stemming, look, read it closely. Stemming from the removal of content for almost basically any reason, in good faith.
Right.
In good faith. There's got to be a tipping point where it is a justiciable issue whether or not good faith has been shown or not shown, or whether there's proof of good faith or proof of a failure of good faith. And when you consistently invoke rules against people of one political persuasion, but not another political persuasion, who putatively violate those same rules, that's a prima facie demonstration of a lack of good faith.
Right.
I don't think anyone has really served it up that way yet. In any case, to my knowledge, it hasn't. No one has focused on that. There, people are obsessed with this publisher versus platform aspect, which is all about third party, about liability for the actions of third parties. And the whole issue there was, what if somebody defames you on the internet, on an internet service provider?
Right.
Which, by the way, when I remember when that statute was passed, I never dreamt that an application or a website like Facebook or Twitter was an internet service provider. But that, to be fair, that interpretation stuck very early on, well before we got to where we are now. And Congress had complete power to do something about it, and in its typical Congress way, didn't. So there we are.
Yeah, but and not that I ever want to give Congress a pass, except when it's like a one-way pass to the guillotine. But but to be fair, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all of these monolithic sort of companies that have become the social media that we know. I mean, the Section 230s passed in 1996. Those things don't exist in the form we have today, really. And I mean, I'm gonna be controversial, I guess, and say until about 2015, they're existing in a similar way. But if you remember, Twitter was pro free speech. I mean, that was the stated objective, was a place to speak freely. You got Google saying don't be evil. You've got Facebook and MySpace, and these are competing free platforms. And then somewhere around 2015, going into the 2016 election, we start to see things really start to shift as these companies get political, they get involved, and then suddenly all those sort of notions about freedom just sort of get peeled away. So, I mean, while it was cemented early and Congress didn't really do anything about it, and what you're saying is cemented early is the notion that a non-internet service provider is an internet service provider if they provide a service over the internet, basically, rather than actually providing a backbone connection of some sort.
Exactly. Because I will tell you that I was doing intellectual property enforcement work at this time.
Right.
And we were spending a tremendous amount of time trying to find ways to find intermediaries liable the way the IP bar had successfully found landlords liable for willful blindness, a topic my wife wrote an entire book on, for selling counterfeit merchandise. You know that you're renting, you've got a storefront in Chinatown, you know that they're selling fake Louis Vuitton bags there, you pretend you don't know what's going on, you cash the rent checks. And you can never necessarily get the guys who disappear overnight, but you can always get the landlord because they're attached to the building. So we were looking at credit card processors and at all this stuff, and the courts consistently said that's not enough knowledge. And finally, in the Tiffany versus eBay case, the Second Circuit said made a very bad decision, in my opinion, when they said, well, it might be enough knowledge, but it would really just be bad for eBay's business to have to do that, to have to. They actually said that. It's mind-boggling. But anyway, again,
it's going to be hard. So look, it's eBay. It's just one mom and pop couple in a little hut somewhere with a.
And they have Captain Kirk doing their commercials. I mean, so cute.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with 230, right? When they pass it, GeoCities and Angel Fire are still a thing. They're providing websites to people like Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan, right? Like one of my favorite websites of all time in high school, because it was accessible from the school and it had naked women on it. It was perfect. But as long
as you had enough time to download that high-res picture over your dial-up.
But yeah, so they had these, those websites we all remember from the 90s, which were just cancerous looking, horrible backgrounds with like the wrong color text, so it just bled your eyes together. But you could anybody could make one, right? And that was the whole thing. It was this liberating sort of thing, because you go from these dial-up internet services to dial-up bulletin board services, where you're calling a specific place. Then AOL sort of opens up the internet, but it's kind of curated because AOL has like these AOL websites and stuff like that. And then suddenly everybody's got them. And so 230 comes along and they're like, look, nobody can keep up with what every dummy on the internet wants to make for their website. And they don't know what they're going to put on there. So they should get a little protection. But now we go to today, where you've got Twitter. Even though they get something like 1 billion tweets a minute, they are able to, and that's all from 2 people, they are able to go ahead and pre-screen those tweets, determine if there is offensive language, and send you a message that says, are you sure you want to make fun of this person? Like, are you sure you want to do that? They might cry. And that was never something that was considered in 1996, because they couldn't picture it. Like there was no... The whole idea was there's no way anybody can police all of the stuff that's going on.
Yes, and you make a very good point, which I kind of stumbled onto myself. When I made it, it was an okay point, but when you made it, was a great point. I was realizing, I guess this was last week when I was discussing this with another charming interlocutor who it occurred to me that there's this theme that from people, a lot of them, the libertarians, and a lot of them are the people who have just drunk the Kool-Aid in Section 230. We wouldn't have the internet that we have today if not for Section 230. And I would say, let me spot you that. Okay, let's stipulate to that.
Okay.
But look at what we have today. Now it's time for something else. Now it's because what we have today is massive corporate censorship.
Right.
Like we've got these really cool platforms that have grown up and become these incredible, powerful tools. And yet there's this incredibly gratuitous, the amazing thing about this is that it's such a failure of capitalism or of the free market, or it is a demonstration that it's the free market has nothing to do with this, or little. It's bad for business to remove people who represent, whose opinions are consistent with 20, 30, 40% of your users.
Right.
You are reducing your traffic. And then to repeatedly lie about it. So what does that tell you? That tells you that it's not a core value of the companies of Twitter. It might be among their employees, but something occurred to me while you were describing this change that took place from 2015 to now. During that period, you have successive tranches of funding, and institutions start coming in,
right?
And people who have their own agendas, and Wall Street. In other words, the don't be evil guys, and the free wing. The free wing? I'm sorry, the free speech wing of the free speech party.
Right.
Those guys were great, just like early stage founders get kicked out because they don't really know how to run a company, and their ethos were probably entirely, I believe they were entirely sincerely held. But then money showed up.
Lots of it.
Not that they were bought off by the money, but rather money took control. Money runs the companies now. These are just gigantic. And what I just cannot fathom is how libertarians, so many of them, not every single one of them, but so many libertarians have refused to acknowledge that if your concern is with liberty, you should be worried about anyone who systematically deprives an entire sectors of your polity of liberty, regardless of whether it's in a courthouse or a building with a dome on it, or some fantastic multi-billion-dollar palace, in Mountain View, California. But they, a lot of them still don't get that.
Right. That's an interesting thing. As I guess, I don't know, I'm a bad libertarian, I think, now, but generally I've considered myself to be a libertarian forever, but not in the sense that I vote Libertarian Party, because I think the Libertarian Party is the funniest sideshow in politics. But
yeah, I think a lot of people make that distinction. Now you're in very good company.
Yeah. And so, but my whole thing is let's find ways to maximize liberty. And then from there, we regulate from zero rather than regulating from all of these assumptions far down the number line. I say we start with maximum liberty and then we go, okay, on this issue, how far do we go in? And then we stop. But with that, I used to be very much on the side of a place like a Google or a Facebook saying, you know what? No, we got to respect them. They're private companies, private company rights, blah, blah, blah. All of those wonderful conservative libertarian arguments. And nowadays, though, and we're seeing it erode all over the place. It's like, wait a minute, though. I go back to Ayn Rand and I say, the smallest minority is the individual, and liberty is the that is the pinnacle interest of the minority, is protecting that liberty. And so if we've got wherever the deprivation of liberty is occurring, surely it's the worst when it's government, because then it has the force of law and monopoly on violence.
Don't call me Shirley. I thought that was the one thing that we established.
You're right. We talked about that before the show. I do apologize. I'll send
No.
I'll send you liquidated damages. It'll be just a bag of liquor though, not in a bottle.
Oh, liquidated. Okay. As long as it's what you're drinking now, it'll probably be worth it for me.
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, that there has to be a reconfiguration of these libertarian concepts, and Pat, I apologize, by the way, to the 4 or 5 Ron Coleman fans who must exist in the world who have followed me throughout the course of the 5 or 6 podcasts I've done in the last week, and we're starting to hear some repetition. But I'm going to say this again.
You were with other people before me? I thought I was your first.
I didn't even shower after the last
Oh
one.
my God.
It's okay. He was in Iowa. It's like all dry heat. There is that my side gag completely threw off what I was going to say. About the liberty, the thing that is the freedom, Maine and Virginia, that we have to. Oh yes, that Pat Buchanan was when you were in high school 30 years ago, yelling. No, you were in high school 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, 20.
Yeah, but it was probably about 20 years ago, Willie, when he reached the end of his useful life, and
Useful.
for all his peccadillos, and he was terrific. He was terrific on TV in the day, but he was saying we've got to wake up conservatives to the globalist movement, to the fact that corporations who are answerable to no government and no people are making decisions for entire, continents, and this is where the problem is going to be in the future. And he nailed it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the globalism argument was handed from Pat Buchanan to Alex Jones.
Yeah, and
I'm kidding.
That is an interesting.
But
Alex, look,
I love Alex Jones. By the way.
First, what they say, first is tragedy, and second is as comedy, or as no, first is comedy. Well, whatever it was. I love Alex Jones also. I mean, he made a couple of really, really bad calls that he's never going to be able to escape. But people keep reminding everyone he was so right about so many other things. I only ever watched him once. I don't watch anything. I never watched. I don't have time to listen to people talk. I have multiple voices in my head. Why do I need to listen to people have a conversation? But once my client Gavin McInnes was on InfoWars with Alex, and it was amazing because Gavin is a force of nature. Gavin is quite a force of nature himself. I watched him shrink smaller and small. He just was so overwhelmed by the power, by the force that is Alex Jones. He's a maniac.
Yeah, he's great. I love that. That's what makes him so funny. And I barely ever watch him because, like you, I mean, you're you're doing your legal stuff. That's cute and all. I'm doing the important work of talking on YouTube and making fun of people. But
I have my little YouTube, I have my podcast now, about that.
You do. And it's actually, by the way, guys, Ron's channel is linked in the description, along with a link to the Dhillon Law Group and his blog. So definitely check out what's going on. But in the same way, I mean, when you get busy, and especially, you're in the business of arguing this stuff in court and writing briefs and doing research about it. I'm in the business of talking about this stuff all the time from my own perspective here on YouTube. And so you really don't have time to absorb this type of content or content in that same realm, because you're in it all day. And when you go to, like, when I go to watch a video on YouTube, I'm like, okay, let me see what Dungeons and Dragons is doing or whatever. Like, it's never this stuff. It's not my friends or colleagues, which I always feel bad. I click on their videos and let them autoplay while I sleep. So
that's exactly what happens with the best of intentions. With the best of intentions, or because frequently I'll put on, like, if it's a talking heads kind of thing like this, I'll put it on while I'm driving.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm thinking about pizza. I'm thinking, I'm not plugged in. And that's actually, now that I'm doing podcasting, I realize I'm actually having a lot of very useful conversations with people whose names I've known for years and years. And also meeting people who, like, I had Michael Knowles on a couple of weeks ago, and we've been following each other for years. We never even interacted on Twitter. Yeah. It was just like we both said, yeah, this is a guy I ought to follow. Yeah, this is a guy I ought to follow. And we just hit it off. And Michael Malice and I have become such good friends, and we would never meet each other. So, that at least this gets people like us to be a little bit social and get outside of our own heads.
Yeah, it's weird though, because that is, of course, the double-edged sword of social media in general. It's presumably social, but it's not that social. Especially when you get to some level of followers. I don't know exactly where it is. It's not that many though. You get to some level of followers, and then suddenly everything is like it's an interaction that happens in this faraway place. Like you're throwing a football with a message on it into a garbage can, and then there's just a bunch of other footballs coming in, and then you go look through the garbage can later, and you're like, oh, okay, here's mine. Oh, hey, this is neat. This one's from, oh, wow, that's Beyonce. That's cool. I didn't know she could even throw a football. And you don't get that interaction until you somehow bridge that gap. Like you walk around the radius until the circumference until you find that person. That's a direct message, and then like a podcast thing. But most people, even people who amass a ton of followers on these platforms, unless they're doing something else, never get this sort of one-to-one interaction. It's always separated by this text barrier where everything is so almost formal.
I think to a large extent, you're right. I think there are exceptions, because I became quite friendly and eventually somewhat close with Mike Cernovich, entirely through
another force of nature.
Another force of nature, and really the godfather of Twitter. What the fun thing about Mike is 90% of his followers don't get his game at all. They don't get what he's doing. They don't know when he's changed modalities. They can't follow it. They're confused. And why should that surprise us? Most people are dingbats. My followers are of the highest quality, by the way.
Of course,
you have missed nothing. No, because
hand selected.
Listen, you will. It's a select. I have a selective appeal. No, but the thing is, like, you'll see, like, when Mike says something outrageous, and hundreds or thousands of his people will. This is why I hated you. You're not on our side. Don't you get it? Don't you get it? He's trying to make a point here, and that's just eluding you. But all right, Mike's a special case. You're right. By and large, it is, and it's a privilege for those of us who do get to have this kind of internet interaction, because we're interesting enough for someone to want to hear from us.
Right.
But that also comes back to,
or we fool them.
Aren't that interesting? What's that?
I said, or we fool them.
As long as we fool each other.
Well, see, what I realize is I'm not that interesting, but if I drink enough and start screaming, it's like when you go into the mall and you yell a whole lot in the middle of it, a bunch of people will come around and watch. Like, they may not like it, but you'll attract that crowd. But no, I think you're right. But it's this weird place. What bothers me, kind of bringing it back to the topic though, is we get these. Oh wait, no. I wanted to say one thing. You were talking about people don't kind of get what Mike's doing when he's making a point. And I think maybe this is a lawyer problem that we all have. I run into the same thing. Lately, I've been talking a little bit about a big lawsuit that's out there. And I'm not talking about yours at this moment. I'm talking about Trump, because it's the big news splash. Trump has filed a bewilderingly class action lawsuit, even though he's the only president who's on it. Actually,
who could be a more representative class, a better class representative? Mr. Typicality himself, the most unique human being on the face of the earth.
The amazing thing is, I don't know the actual limits, because I don't do federal class action suits in my private practice. I've known, but if you got every president alive and dead together, I don't know if you could certify the class. Don't you need 50 of them or something?
I thank you so much. Listen, my firm represents Donald Trump and the Trump organization, not in this matter.
Right.
So I do have to tread a little bit carefully.
Yes.
But I will say that I'm intrigued by the challenge that the attorneys for the former president undertook in making this a class action, and I'm interested in seeing where they go with it.
I like the Robert Barnes approach. I was watching him on he was on Dave Rubin for an interview, and I was watching a clip of that, and he said he basically suggested, look, they filed a complaint. And there might be some things missing from it. There might not, but really they do have a chance to amend it. For more or less what he said. And if they amend the complaint and add in some of these things, that could be interesting. But so getting back to it though, I was making a point, and I wasn't talking about the class action. I did a very short video about how Facebook is probably not a state actor, and that's one of the foci, I guess, of the Trump case, is this idea that these social media platforms are state actors in a legal capacity, which is an extremely narrow classification that is rarely applied and requires a whole lot of direct involvement from the state, ordering a private entity to do something that is traditionally done only by the state. And that's a really high bar. And so I brought that up, and then of course I get the pushback that I must be wrong, or two, that I don't trust the plan or whatever it is. And it's like, guys, no, it's okay. I'm on Trump's side on this. I do want to see something change with social media. I think he in particular, he may have some of the largest harm reputationally or whatever of anyone on social media. His deplatforming is the stuff of myth and legend. It was probably the biggest account that's ever been terminated. So he has a unique level of harm, and I want to see something change with it. But I don't know that this is the way to go about it because of these real legal problems. And people get mad when you have any dissent from the direction of the movement. It's like, no, I'm swimming with you. It's just there's a whirlpool ahead of you, and I'm trying to go this way.
Yeah, that's, I think, a good metaphor. It is, it's a problem. Look, by having what in its best moments is an extremely democratic discussion, people who don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the law, that includes 95% of non-lawyers and 50 to 75% of lawyers, when any given topic is raised.
Right. Even good lawyers, if they're talking outside of their practice area, can be completely in the dark on something, because there's just so much. Like, there is so much jurisprudence on any particular issue except the Second Amendment that it's almost impossible to have read it all. The amazing thing is you can read all Second Amendment jurisprudence that exists in about an afternoon. but other than that, though, like outside of that, slip and falls in every state are completely different. I mean, if you're a state like Minnesota, slip and falls get really strange because we have ice and people are supposed to know how to navigate it. But if you're down in Florida and someone slips on some ice, you really screwed up. Like, you did something really wrong. So it's a whole different field. But But the other thing, where was I going with this? You're talking about how most people don't understand it. Yeah, it's not like it's their fault. They shouldn't have to understand this stuff. And what gets me though, and what I think is uniting so many people right now, is that whether or not this stuff is right or wrong, and it goes all the way back to the election cases. I'm almost done. It goes back to the.
No.
Oh,
I'm giving you a thumbs up. You like where you're going.
I thought you're like, hold on, I want to interject. And I'm like, listen.
No, I would just interject.
We had an agreement. You wouldn't interrupt my rants. No. So it goes back to the election cases and stuff. Is this feels wrong. This feels wrong to so many people that there must be something wrong legally that can fix it. And so then when you start, people are exploring this issue, and lawyers, God bless us all of us soulless, blood-sucking, money-grubbing heathens, we're all trying to figure out the way to go about it. And in that process, we see other things that are going to fail. We criticize those or whatever, and we're going to try this thing. But it's a lot of us just trying to figure out how to do it. But the overwhelming consensus, it's that whole swimming together thing. Everybody feels like this is wrong. And so that's the core thing. I was telling a client a while ago, they're like, this doesn't feel right. And I was like, the thing is, usually when something doesn't feel right, like deep down doesn't feel right, it isn't. And so the question is then marrying that up to the right legal avenue to pursue.
I think you're making a really very important point, because there is something to be said. All these failed lawsuits, all the Laura Loomer lawsuits, all the people running into walls.
Gavin Nunes has like 200 of them. He's doing yeoman's work.
Right. It has to happen. And one thing, though, that's a problem is that judges across the country, I've often spoken about the idea that there's a judicial culture. And in particular, we saw it during the election. The signal went out, and we also saw it in the COVID lockdown cases. Certain signals went out, sometimes from the Supreme Court, sometimes from lower courts. A consensus developed among judges, and only judges who were really prepared to depart from the pack did depart from the pack. And there were even some who ran back into the pack when they realized that they were out by themselves. And
don't you dare call out Alito like that.
Well, I will never know what happened with Alito there. I'm thinking actually,
right? Like, I'm referencing the Pennsylvania case where they all said, we'll revisit this later. And then when it came back, they're like, meh.
Yeah. You just don't know. Let me just make an analogy, though. When people start taking apart the way someone's handling a case, and we all do it, I always try to interject this point, which is that if you don't have the red welt, which today is a metaphor, if you don't have the red welt, you don't know why a lawyer had to make certain decisions. And just as we'll never know why did Alito do something so promising, and then not only did he withdraw from it, but we didn't hear from him.
Right.
And he has in recent years, he was by far the most silent justice publicly for many, many years. And the last couple of years, he's been relatively outspoken for him. Why all of a sudden? I just don't know. I don't know, and I can't. That wasn't actually what I had in mind. What I actually had in mind was a judge in the Northern District of New York.
Okay.
Who issued one of the first opinions saying that Governor Cuomo had overshot the mark with emergency powers with respect to religious gatherings. And then when other cases came his way, because that's a small district, where people sought to designate cases as related he punted. And there were cases where, including one that I filed on behalf of fireworks exhibitors, where we said, Judge, under the terms of your injunction, this wasn't even a First Amendment issue, it was a public gathering issue. Under the terms of your injunction, these local regulations prohibiting fireworks displays are a violation of that injunction. We're asking you to please enforce your injunction. He wouldn't do it. And we ended up with an Obama judge, and she said emergency, So right. There, I think that the judicial shepherding phenomenon has probably gotten stronger in the electronic age.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, judges are supposed to be detached, neutral creatures. We give them, at the federal level, we give them lifetime appointments all the way up the chain to nicely paying and well appointed jobs with lots of power. And we say, you have this so that you're not beholden to your words or opinions in a negative way. Like you are immune from that. We can't say, well, we don't like the job you're doing. We don't like the judgments you're making. You're fired. We have to go through extraordinary steps to remove you from your office. And yet with that, and then with social media, which basically no judge is on because they kind of can't.
The judge can't be on social media.
Right.
But the judges, you think the judges are not on social media?
Oh, they're definitely on there.
And their clerks are. And if you think I ever walked into a court in the last 5 years without have a complete presence of my social media identity and opinions and views having been discussed in chambers, you're kidding yourself.
Right.
I say me. Why me? Because among the lawyers who are actually in active practice in litigation, people like me and Kurt Schlichter, and, I can name maybe 20 people on the right, and maybe there are as many on the left, who are active federal litigators or state litigators, who have opinions and do the stuff that we do. We know that it's costing us, but on the other hand, it's also one of the definitions of what a lawyer is supposed to do. Is to advocate in public.
And I want to talk about that. Maybe we can come back to that topic because I want to get back to the suit you're filing and sort of this idea of how we go about pulling back social media and what it looks like. But I do want to come back to this discussion because I think the internet has changed advocacy in real ways. I think the amazing thing to me is you say there's probably 20 lawyers on the right that you can name, and maybe as many on the left that you can name where their views are outspoken. They're there, and that they've got enough of a presence. It doesn't take a ton, but enough of a presence on social media that when they go into a courtroom, the judge and their clerks who are all typically fresh out of law school, they're like 25 and they're all super smart and tech savvy and they're all so cool. And they go on Twitter and when Mark Randazza walks into a courtroom, people are going to have read Mark Randazza's Twitter timeline from the past 6 months. Like they're going to do it. Right. And I guess in the same extent, every judge who was worshiping at the feet of Mark Elias during the election cycle was probably reading Mark Elias's timeline, or his clerks were, and briefing him on it. That's just a reality. But so I want to come back to that because I think there's something to be said about lawsuits and litigation being done with a public consciousness that I don't think is actually happening. Outside of a very few lawyers. So, but let's go back to the case right now and talk about what makes your suit different from the Trump suit, from other suits that have failed. What avenues are you guys pursuing that make this into a piece of litigation with some promise?
Rogan O'Handley, DC Drano, has 2 or 3 million followers on Instagram. He went to law school. He's passed the bar exam, and then he realized he could make more money and have more fun and do the things he wanted to do instead of practicing law like a worker bee in a big law firm by being a social media influencer, and he makes a pretty decent living.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
That,
yeah, that's I scaled back my now I don't have 3 million followers or anything, but I do okay. And compared to being a small town lawyer, this is a lot more fun.
Oh, sure. And this is the fact that I'm able to justify, I didn't say rationalize, but justify the kind of thing that I'm doing with you now in the middle of the night. Because it helps, and it does help me grow my practice, makes it tolerable to practice.
Right.
Although I like the work that I do now. He was banned from Twitter shortly after Election Day on the grounds that he was tweeting false election information.
Oh, I love it.
It was after Election Day.
Right.
Judicial Watch independently got a hold, did a FOIA request from the state of California and found out that this Bureau of Internet Security, of election security that they had set up, was really just a Politburo, that they were identifying key conservative influencers for censorship. And there's one email in particular, it's the greatest hit. It says, what this guy, DC Drano, was saying about how we handle ballot integrity is entirely inaccurate. And, it's wrong. And people are going to get a misunderstanding.
And it's great because when you think about, you emphasized after Election Day, right? Because the votes are done. Right. Presumably, we won't get into jokes about that because YouTube hates them. But presumably the votes are done. The amount of quote unquote harm that can be done by getting a fact wrong or even outright lying about a claim about the election, that harm is mitigated severely after Election Day because the vote's already cast.
But the best possible way to mitigate that harm is for someone knowledgeable to say, hey, schmuck, that's not how we do things. But instead of,
right,
we all learned in constitutional law that the best remedy for bad speech is good speech. Mm-hmm. Instead of some good speech, they banned him. They banned him because he said something that they thought was wrong. They made look, that's not even why. That was the pretext.
Right.
So now you have the smoking gun, literal government instruction to Twitter. Twitter complies. This process of vetting tweets was not only done by some functionary in this bureau. 22 state attorneys general, all Democrats, were involved in this process.
I know exactly which 22 because they're the exact same 22 which went after the 3D printed guns, right? They went after Defense Distributed. I bet the roster...
are the Soros attorneys.
It's the exact same group. It's like, how is it always the same 22?
So that's what's going on. And they hired a consultant, which has been involved in a number of interesting places in political history recently. And here you've got that government action. Yes, it is a high burden, but there's at least a prima facie case here.
Now, you guys, if I skimmed the lawsuit, I didn't read word for word all of it, but I don't recall a call out to the state actor claim, because it seems like you guys are attacking primarily the actions of the state itself, not as much the actions of Twitter. I mean,
yes, I mean, it would have been absurd not to include Twitter in the lawsuit,
right.
but and I also think it would be absurd for Twitter to throw up its hands and say, listen, they told me they would break my legs if I didn't give them a bribe, so I had to give them a bribe. That ain't gonna fly. So they need to be in it, but they're the last defendant. They're the last defendant, and they're the one we care about the least. I don't want to go too far in that regard, but the point is, the problem here is the state.
Yeah, well, because Twitter's going to take this approach. I had a great discussion on Twitter the other day with my friend Nate. He's a New York lawyer. Nate the Lawyer on YouTube.
Yes, I hear about him I'm always hearing about him from Nearman. And I saw that discussion, by the way, and Nate was wrong. And you handled him well.
But
I don't know Nate myself.
No, Nate's great. It probably looked like more of a fight than it was, because it's
I'm way past that. I get that.
But yeah, but the idea on that is this. To me, it's the government's act that is critical, and specifically in yours, there's a statute. It's section 10.5 of whatever California code that you're going after, because, and that was the creation of this bureau, right? You referred to it as jokingly as the Politburo, but it's actually effectively the Politburo, and it creates this entity that is there to combat speech, a very specific approach to a specific type of political speech that they want to abolish, and they're actually doing it. But Twitter's defense in this thing, if I'm Twitter's lawyers, one of the main defenses I'm thinking is, look, we just took a report. It came from, we didn't even know it came from the government of California, where we do business, and has, roughly a fifth of our entire user base in America. We didn't even know that was happening. It was just a report, right? And Nate was talking about how, look, if the government just flags it, it's the same as you or I flagging it. We know that is absurd. From a practical standpoint, if the state of California's Office of Election Integrity sends an email to the Twitter moderation team and says, hey, we know you guys have a policy on election integrity issues. Here's the government election integrity team telling you in your state where you do business that this is not acceptable. That's different than Joe Anime Avatar 6369 sending a flag, right? Like that's an entirely different thing.
It's about as credible as the defense that goes, all I said to him was that it was a very nice place that he had here, and it would be a shame if something would have happened to him. I can't express my opinion about prospective fire safety issues. but not only that, that's a defense that is fact dependent. Mm-hmm. We would just take, okay, well, I get to find out whether that's true or whether you had a protocol.
This is the beauty of a prima facie showing to get past a 12. Well, California's equivalent of a 12B6.
Oh no, this is a federal case. This is in the Central District of California.
Right. It's federal case. It's under California state law.
Section 1983. What are you talking about? I mean, there's also California claims in there.
It's referencing the California law creating the Politburo. So sorry for my confusion on that.
That's right.
But okay, so you're in federal court. So it's 12B6 motion to dismiss. What you have to establish is a prima facie showing that each of these things is basically plausible. And you're supposed to get all of the deference in the world. Like they're supposed to say, no, yeah, we're going to read this as if their complaint is factual, and the other team doesn't get to make any counterpoints to the facts until a trial or a summary judgment motion. But So the question is, as someone who has watched some lawsuits unfold in my time and participated in a couple myself, I tend to find that judges tend to take that prima facie thing not as seriously all the time. Are you worried about that?
No, I will tell you, as someone who might be the most knowledgeable person on Rule 12b-6 you have ever had on your air.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Having not only litigated a gazillion of them, but also written the chapter on the topic of responses to complaints in the West American Bar Association Commercial Litigation and Federal Courts chapter on the subject.
So
that judges of all the things, if you want to complain about what judges do, it's when they weigh evidence on a Rule 56 motion for summary judgment. They're terrible at that. And there's one judge in New York who I just can't say his name, but he's such a bastard. He's such an insincere outcome. A guy who writes a 60-page summary judgment decision to demonstrate that there are no facts. 60 pages to tell me that there are no bona fide factual disputes.
Sounds like a gem.
But as a general rule, I will tell you that both in federal court and in the state courts where I practice in New York and New Jersey, I think judges really do tend to get that. Not only that, lawyers from big firms cannot stop themselves from submitting a bunch of affidavits in response, into support of a motion to dismiss.
Which is great, because those introduce facts all over the place.
Well, no, remember, they're trying to introduce facts. And I just love when judges say, I threw them all in I say, Judge, you know what to do. Yeah, right. In the garbage. And the judge, so that's not really I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is when judges, the thing about a 12b-6 motion is that it's a tremendous opportunity for judges to make novel legal calls. And in fact, the cases interpreting and applying 12b-6, motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim, which relief could be granted, actually say that they should not be an occasion for a court to make novel legal opinions. Very few people realize this. In addition to accepting all well-pleaded allegations as true, if the court is going to have to go through a maze in order to find a new application of the law to dismiss the case, that's not the time to do it. 12b-6 is not the time to do it, because I'm allowed to go into court taking the law as it is.
Right.
And plead my case. Now, often what a court will do in such a situation is say, here's an issue that I think you need to address in an amended complaint. A legal issue that I think, pleading wise, if you can, subject to the requirements of Rule 11, plead facts that properly meet this point, then do so. And if you can't, then don't. But that's where the action is going to be. It's going to be all about that motion to dismiss. And if we get discovery, then we have won a large part of the case.
Okay,
this is the discussion. One thing that is remarkable is that in all these cases, and as you said, people throwing stuff up against the wall, hoping something will stick. Because once something sticks, we get to take depositions. We get to look at documents. We get to look at emails. We get to look at what these rules are. And there's scary stuff in there. There's stuff that they don't want us to see. We all know that.
So this is unrelated to your issue, but I want to clarify this and get this statement out there. So you're saying that a law firm that submits a bunch of affidavits on a motion to dismiss at the pretrial stage, that those affidavits should be tossed out for the purposes of a motion to dismiss, equivalent to a 12b-6.
Yes.
And that those affidavits have basically no bearing. And the primary reason for that would be because the plaintiff or the complainant or whatever whatever jurisdiction you're in, says that their assertions are supposed to be taken as true for the purposes of determining that initial motion to dismiss.
And not only that, you're giving me affidavits. So let's be clear for our non-lawyer listeners. Do you have any non-lawyer listeners?
No, every single one of them is an attorney of esteemed regard, even more prominent than you.
So an affidavit is a written form of testimony. What happens in discovery is the people who submit affidavits, I turn them into my witnesses, and I essentially cross-examine them under oath and on the record. And I put in front of them documents that may contradict their narrative, or that I need to understand how they fit into their narrative. And I will take depositions of, depending on the case, 330, 300 people in order to establish the facts. When you just plain swear out an affidavit, you're asking the court to, I don't have access to the witness who wrote your affidavit. And in a case like this, I can't give you a counter affidavit. If it were the case that we were weighing, is there a bona fide dispute of fact? I say the light was red, and here's my affidavit. You say the light was green, here's my affidavit. Okay, they cancel each other out. Let's do discovery.
Right.
But in the case of a lawsuit involving a complex political or commercial entity and a series of perhaps hundreds or thousands of transactions, I have no way of I don't have access to the information that Google does. For example, I'll give you a great example. We're representing James O'Keefe in his lawsuit in New York State Court.
Wait, is this the current one going on?
Well, we've got a couple. So there's
the New York Times one. That's is this
no. So we're not representing him in the New York Times.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay,
no,
sorry.
This is the one against there's one against CNN that we're representing him in Atlanta, and there's one that we're representing him in upstate New York. I'm not in upstate, in Westchester County, which is O'Keefe personally against Twitter. O'Keefe was banned from Twitter, and the reason they gave for it was that he was using multiple accounts.
Right. They said he was operating multiple fake accounts.
Those were the words.
And they had, the best part about that is they had no reason. Like, again, we discussed this earlier. Oftentimes they don't tell you what section of the terms that you've broken. But in this one, they didn't tell James O'Keefe. Instead, they apparently sent a press release or something, or they had some agent of Twitter contacted, I think it was BuzzFeed, or whatever, and they found out that James is operating multiple accounts before James knew that he was operating multiple accounts.
Right. So James, we haven't. He has to put in an affidavit because he didn't have any obligation to put in an affidavit.
Right.
But the allegations are, after all the diligence in the world, because we knew that the case hinged on this. James, did you have multiple fake accounts? Answer: no. So they come back and say to us in a letter threatening sanctions, we have information suggesting that he did. and here's what he did. And they tell us a little bit, but not. Our response to them is, look, if you've got information that we're wrong, we'd like to know. Tell us now.
Right.
But you can't come back. You can't make a motion to dismiss. No, they will. They will. Based on a claim that here's the real information. Because you're not giving me the opportunity to depose the people, to find out the validity of the documents that you claim. You're going to give me maybe a bunch of server IDs. That requires expert testimony. I mean, you can't. So that's why it works this way. Now, they tried to remove that case to federal court.
Right. I heard about this. Viva and Barnes covered it very well. They tried to remove it to federal court. The presumption was that they would then try to change venue to California to be a little bit more favorable, get it in the Ninth Circuit in case they lose. Ninth Circuit might pick them up on appeal and give them a nice dust off and say, here you go, Twitter, good boy.
And we got it sent right back.
Good.
That was fun.
Okay, so that's a federal case in New York, though, correct?
No, so that's now a state case.
Okay, so that's back to the state case. So then now the question is Twitter going to pursue, do you think, an anti-SLAPP motion under New York's refined anti-SLAPP laws? And how ridiculous is it? To me, I know a lot of people love anti-SLAPP laws. I hate them.
I'm not one. And I had an argument with Rondazza about this going on for years. Why don't we just enforce the laws against bad faith pleadings? Right. How about just good old Rule 11? Okay, let's stick with Rule 11, because if you can prove that I didn't have a good faith basis for whatever the standard might be in a given state, then I've almost certainly violated Rule 11. And if I haven't, and I also think it's very problematic that a state should be, and this is a different circuits have had different opinions on this. A state should be able to govern what claims I can make in federal court. That, and in the Ninth Circuit, they say, well, that's substantive law of California.
Right. Fifth Circuit says otherwise. Fifth Circuit says no, which is, I think, the right thing. But at the same time, like I hate that Texas even has an anti-SLAPP. I'm in the beautiful paradise of Minnesota, where we just go, you don't need an anti-SLAPP because you have a motion to dismiss already that you could already make. You don't actually need a second motion to dismiss that has a bunch of special rules attached to it. And it's exactly what you're saying. If your behavior is so egregious, if the case is so obviously frivolous, then you're already bound for sanctions. That sanction should easily include attorney's fees. And there's no purpose to have an anti-SLAPP law. And I really hate the one in Texas. I don't know how the revised one in New York is. No, the revised one in New York doesn't go as far. Texas forecloses discovery the moment an anti-SLAPP is filed.
New York says that on application you can get the discovery. So California, it's a little bit easier to get discovery. You can pretty much ask for it, and I think you just have to, show some kind of good cause. New York, you're going to have to fight for it. There have not been a lot of cases on it. It was only enacted. It was only finalized in November. It has become. I'll tell you something else. I mean, I just got I successfully argued a motion to dismiss in New York State Court in Carpy Duncan's case. That was brought by the running toddler couple. And
the running toddler couple,
the meme that they used to throw Carpy Duncombe off Twitter, when he did a parody, of the running toddlers embracing each other, the white and the black toddler.
Oh, sure.
And he did one saying that if CNN had depicted this interaction, it would have been white toddler chasing down a black toddler. And this preposterous lawsuit was filed against Logan Cook, Carpy Duncombe, and Donald Trump and his campaign. And we represented Carpy.
Sure.
And we got it dismissed. And I wish I could share the images of the judge's eyes bugging out when these guys were making their argument. It was a claim for misappropriation of likeness. Which is, what likeness? Who are these kids? I mean, just dumb upon dumb.
So wait a minute, the parents' kids filed the lawsuit?
Right. On behalf, yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, so
I haven't seen this case, but so they're going with basically, I guess, the right of publicity sort of.
Right. The equivalent of right of publicity, which in New York, you only violate this statutory right of publicity if you're using the image for a commercial purpose.
Right. And parody is entirely excluded.
Right. So and the court said, so they said, well, Trump. So he said, well, Trump used it. Carpy used it for commercial purposes because he wanted to be promoted by Trump, because he was really working for Trump all along. See, when he did this.
Okay.
But going back to if they allege it, the court has to accept it as true. They had no good faith basis for saying so, but no accountability. Okay.
Right.
But and why was this commercial use by Trump to have retweeted it? Because, Your Honor, it's well known that the entire purpose of Trump becoming president was to enrich himself financially. And you thought it was to hand over the controls of the American state to Russia.
No. He was just trying to get rich. That's all he was doing. Trump didn't have enough money. He was trying to get rich.
And the judge said to him, is it your position that every politician now from that going forward is going to be deemed, for whatever he does in office or whatever he does politically, will be deemed to be a commercial activity? No, just Trump, Your Honor, but it's well established like just
citation needed, please. It's well established.
Madness. So, notwithstanding the preposterousness of this lawsuit,
yeah.
So we made a counterclaim for New York SLAPP sanctions, or we moved in response to their motion, along with our motion to dismiss. We also sought SLAPP sanctions, and the judge said, in what appears to be complete contravention of the statute, after finding that their complaint was utter garbage and essentially making out the classic case of a SLAPP suit. This is the SLAPP suit that they're talking about.
Yeah. He
says, but this isn't an appropriate use of the draconian sanctions of the New York anti-SLAPP suit. Culture point, because New York judges are going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming to overcome that resistance that you and I both have to this idea. Whereas in California, they've been bathing in it now for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
And they're fine with it. They're fine. And I think, look, the American rule, whenever you have fee shifting, you're abrogating the American rule. And you're saying, let's do it like in the UK. Loser pays. That's not such a great rule. There's a reason the American rule is the American rule. Big parties have less to lose by having to pay the attorney's fees of small parties.
Yep.
And if I make a motion or file a complaint and a judge really, really hates it, not just hates it, but really, really hates it, instead of just having a lawsuit that's going to get dismissed, and I spent $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 preparing and filing, I'm now going to pay Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher's attorney's fees for getting it dismissed. I'm out of business. Out of business.
Yeah, and that's why I hate anti-SLAPP laws in general. When they seem like they should be the obvious answer, they're never the obvious answer. And when it seems like, everything you're saying here sounds like a fact issue that should be dealt with at trial, they're like, but at the same time we have this anti-SLAPP, so maybe we're just going to dismiss it and you can work it out on appeal. I hate that. I hate that aspect of it.
I will tell you that it's really, really mucking things up on defamation cases in New York, because what they've done is essentially, because there's actually a clear and convincing evidence standard. So that I have to basically pre-try a defamation claim on where did I get that evidence?
And to a higher level of standard than you have to do to win, which is just preponderance, which doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand. Well, I mean, what I'd like to know, and I haven't had a chance to look at, is what were the politics? See, so I will say this much: defamation has really long been, but more than ever, is a cause of action of the right, because the left controls the press.
Right.
And also the right actually tends, and there are exceptions, right? Remember the old American Spectator lawsuit where, this is before your time, but they made some really far out claims about stuff that was going on in Arkansas. And they really almost went under because they were sued by these people who were like part of this Clinton world. With these rare exceptions, you can say anything you want about anyone on the left. You will never be sued. They don't threaten lawsuits. They decide they don't only decide what's going to be covered in the newspaper and on the cable news. They decide what's going to come up as a Google search result. So why would they have to worry about defamation?
Yeah. Look, are you suggesting that Google can manipulate search results? I have no experience with this. It's yeah, I had after I covered the Damore case, my Google image search results were very particular for a very long time. It took well over 100,000 YouTube subscribers to get around what they had done. And all because I pissed off some very particular people who were all named in that suit, by the way. So that was fun times. That was fun times. Let me read some of the questions from the chat because I know I want to respect your time. I know you're an hour ahead of me, so I want to get to some.
You meant 3 hours, of course.
But no, I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, that's right. You're not the California guy.
No,
that's right. You're only in Minnesota. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Don't ever insult me again by calling me the California guy, or I will fly to New York and we will have it out. Bad Vibes says, I've managed to dodge the vax disinformation police by discussing links to autoimmune allergies, cancers linked to eosinophil T cell in the ARC gene regulation, disability, and vaccines studies first. Okay. I don't even know what that sentence means.
Awesome.
But nail it, buddy. Speaking of that, there's a very interesting ruling that came out today out of Indiana, the University of Indiana, I believe it was. The judge upheld their COVID vaccine requirement.
Yes, I saw that.
And I think it's an interesting case because the judge does bring up a good point in one sense that vaccines have been mandated at the University of Indiana since at least 1993 with measles, mumps, rubella, and a couple others. But at the same time, there's something that just feels different about this vaccine. One, that I think it's not FDA approved yet. It's approved as an emergency provision, but not officially. But it's like it's the temporary nature of it. It feels more like a flu vaccine rather than what we think of as, oh yeah, you get inoculated from birth and that's it. What do you think about that ruling? Sorry, it's kind of off the cuff.
Yeah, it's off the cuff, and I'm not giving legal advice.
No, of course not. Look, if anybody's getting their legal advice from anybody on YouTube, they deserve to be paraded into the street and shot.
Unless it's me, though. Our firm is not touching vaccination cases because we think it's a really, really hard case to win.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have never been more skeptical, which is not to say contemptuous, or is it, of the presumption of regularity afforded governments and municipal units. And, it's the worst thing in the world. But when it comes to vaccinations, let me make it clear. I have not been vaccinated.
Ooh.
Why have I not been vaccinated? I had COVID.
Oh.
I had it.
You did? Wait, you're not dead, though.
I am dead. I died from network neutrality.
No, I know why you're not dead. Sorry. I realized that Joe Biden told me Facebook didn't kill you. So you're not you're not dead. because Facebook, they failed in their duty. They were supposed to, they're like, oh God, Ron's got COVID. We got to go kill him. And they didn't do it.
And I'm a grandpa, right? So I should really be extremely dead.
You should be dead twice. You should be 2 deaths on the COVID rolls.
It's just not right. In any event, it's no. So I'm extremely skeptical of the vaccine. I'm extremely skeptical of the government. Believe me, I'm on the right side of all these issues as someone who has no idea whatsoever what he's talking about. One thing I do know is I ain't taking a vaccination for an illness that I already had. Not gonna happen.
The thing with me, the thing that made me the most skeptical was government gave liability immunity to the vaccine companies, and I said, all right, I'm good to wait a couple years. Like maybe I'll get it eventually, but right now I live in a small town. I'm not going out licking people except on Thursdays, and I'm probably gonna be okay. If I do get it, I'm fairly healthy. I don't have comorbidities. I'm willing to roll the dice on this, and I'm not going to go cough on a bunch of people either. So I'm not going to like run around and spread it. But the moment you give a pharmaceutical company liability immunity, I go, wait a minute now. As a lawyer, I don't trust that ever. Let's give a snowmobile manufacturer liability immunity next, or a jet ski manufacturer, since some people don't live where there's snow, and we would never do it. There's no way. Even if we had emergency flooding and everybody had to buy a jet ski tomorrow, no one's going to Yamaha and saying, look, we need these emergency jet skis to cover all the flooding in Louisiana. You have liability immunity in the state of Louisiana. The government would never do it. If they're not going to do it for a jet ski, I'm not going to take it from a vaccine. No, thank you. That's just me.
That's just you. I've said my piece on vaccination, but I think I do think the Indiana case is unsurprising. I do think judges, again, it's asking a lot of a judge, given especially the present mentality, to buck the state. And it's not as if there's a civil right to not. You don't have to go to Indiana State University.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me, because if there is a university that you can say they can't do this, it is a state college, right? Like they're in several areas, they are state agents.
Right.
They receive state funding. They're part of a state system.
But they could go, but certainly they could do that in the public schools. And they do that in the public schools.
Right. And that's a thing that's, and again, it's this one, right, that feels so wrong to so many people, because the government is out there telling us we have to do it. And no one remembers when the polio vaccine was introduced. I don't know how people reacted when schools were like, by the way, your kid has to be vaccinated against polio and, I don't know, do they do tuberculosis, I think, and diphtheria? Your kid has to do that. When those are new, I don't know what the public outcry was. There wasn't social media, so the public outcry
I don't think there was anything like the public outcry, because, first of all, science appears to have been much less political. Whether it really wasn't or not is, I'm sure there are many authors and experts who can tell you otherwise, tell you the truth. But the hijacking of what is called science,
yeah,
by political actors and people whose interest is not quite what I associate with Jonas Salk's, and I can be wrong about that.
Yeah, it's
undeniable now.
Yeah, it's a tough sort of it's a tough situation for a judge. And yeah, like you mentioned, your firm is not taking those cases because they're really hard to win. And, I mean, it should be a testament to how hard they are to win, as the Supreme Court has heard several religious liberty cases around COVID, which means that they all failed at the district court level and at the appellate level, and are then getting the Supreme Court. And they've only decided favorably on those religious cases something like 50 to 70% of the time, which means their religious liberty cases. There was one recently, just in the past couple of days. I can't remember which one, but they lost. And even though they had some,
they refused to grant
right,
cert.
That's right. They refused to grant cert, despite the fact that they'd been winning a couple of those cases in California. Now they've refused to grant cert, and it goes back on the decision which went against religious liberty in the time of COVID. I feel like that's a documentary in the making, Religious Liberty in the time of COVID. But yeah, so it's really it's kind of a crapshoot. Okay. Victor Phantasm says, Nick, why was I not told that Robert De Niro converted to funny hatism? I loved you in Goodfellas and Casino. Also, Nick, buddy, you got to get your nose game up. Robert is beating you. I think they're saying you look like Robert De Niro.
And I think that they're saying I have a big nose.
Well, that's given. You're on my channel. That's just what happens.
Well, listen, one of those things is absolutely undeniable. I got a big nose. Funny hat team. Okay. I got that too.
Yes.
But no one is mistaking me for De Niro. It's nice. I'll take it. He's known as a good-looking guy, right?
I think if you like winked one eye a little more and were like, listen, you got to talk about this, Nikki. You can't do it. You can't do it, Nikki. I can't do it. No, I think I actually, unironically, I think I see where they're coming from.
Yeah, actually, I have heard it once before.
Someone said a younger De Niro. There you go. Exactly.
Well, I am a lot younger. I am a lot younger than De Niro.
He's pushing close to 80 now, isn't he?
Got to be. Yeah, sure.
And his divorce has actually made the news recently because he's alleging that he's broke basically because of the spousal contribution that he has to make is so big that he has to, his lawyers were alleging the other day that he's basically working 7 days a week just to make ends meet because he has to give her so much money. And, this isn't 1991. Robert De Niro isn't being cast in everything. He's now that venerable guy. And when you're that venerable guy, you get cast in 1 to 2 movies a year because you're retired. Chris Hemsworth is the deal now or whatever. So that's interesting. Felipe Mouve says, amazing guest, Nick. Finally, someone that laughs at your jokes. He really is one of a kind.
That must be amazing, right? That must be amazing.
Look, we have a financial arrangement for him to laugh. It's okay. Clement Poe says, balls or no balls, you're making me spend a lot of money with all these great guests. I don't think we should explore that topic. I think that's okay for the night. Ace of Spades. Now, I apologize. My chat likes me to do voices. So this one is as Kermit the Frog, apparently. If Jordan Peterson were doing the impression. Ron, I don't know why you're here with this schmuck. You should go on a real lawyer's channel like Legal Eagle. Now that's a man with a real bookshelf. I should know I'm a real frog. Also, balls or no balls, Nikki. Well,
is the balls or no balls thing and then one of these inside jokes from your little world?
I tried to save you from this. I really did. Okay. But look, a lot of my fans are fans of anime because I covered a major legal case in the anime voice acting industry. And there's a part of anime called Futanari, which is a female. Yeah, we should just stop. See, look at this. The first guest to figure, he's like, exit stage left. You nailed it. Perfect. Let's move on. Tina says the problem with judges is they have families, and now if you make the wrong decision in a case, then a mob shows up outside your house. Ooh, what do you say to that?
I'm not aware of a mob showing up outside the house of any federal judge.
Do you think any judges are considering that?
No.
There you go. Nailed it. Spigot84 says, hi, Ron. Is there a difference between New York anti-SLAPP and New Jersey anti-SLAPP, or is it one in the same? Thanks.
Gigantic difference. One exists.
New Jersey does not have an anti-SLAPP law then.
Correct.
There you go. Adam D says, great guess, Nick. Is Ron Coleman familiar with the Lucas Gerhard case?
Only vaguely. Only because someone in another podcast interview asked me about it.
Yeah, it's the kid in Michigan. he tweeted or he Snapchatted a picture of his AR-15 with a bayonet on it. And he said, gonna bring this bad boy up to school to watch the snowflakes melt. And by snowflakes, I mean snow, smiley face. And that was Snapchatted to his group of friends. And then one of them showed it to someone else. And that someone else, who was not a recipient of the Snapchat, reported it as a threat. And he was arrested. And the school, of course, allowed guns to be brought up so long as you checked them in at the armory, because this is Upper Peninsula, Michigan. It's an amazing case. It's still going. He has been, he's now on house arrest. He was originally incarcerated for 83 days without a hearing, and is now on house arrest and has been since August of 2019 or November of 2019.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. This is, it's absolute insanity. Insanity.
Yeah.
No one in the room on day 81, on day 80, on day 79, and day 78 said, maybe this kid's not so dangerous. It's all about symbolism and sending a message. And this is what tyrannies do. They're prepared to throw. Why do you have to throw communists out of a helicopter? You could just shoot them in the back of the head and no one ever hears about it. You throw communists. No. I'm making the opposite point from the one you think I'm going to make. The reason they threw communists out of the helicopter was to encourage the others. In other words, everyone should know how we're dealing with this threat to our rule. And that's exactly what it is. That's what this kid is being punished for. And many other kids much like him.
I hate to disagree with you, but you throw...
I don't. It's about time.
You throw communists out of the helicopter because of the corporate government partnership on diesel fuel. And look, you got a lot of diesel fuel. It's being purchased by the government on contract. Therefore, you have to fly the commies up to spend the diesel fuel. This is part of the agreement, and then throw them out. You don't have a government corporate contract on bullets, only on diesel fuel.
I thought you were going to say you throw commies out of a helicopter because it's fun.
No, I gave the serious answer, not the joke answer. This is
in Chile. They had a corporate diesel contract with God.
Also, because your
70s was very different from my 70s. Apparently, like one existed and one didn't.
The splatter pattern is much better from 300 feet up than it is from 2 feet away. Come on, it's like a Rorschach test. It's like you look at the blood spray and you're like, oh, that's a butterfly. It's beautiful.
You really do have a creative part of you that I think is not being heard from enough.
My therapist says the same thing. We've got the gray one says he survived. He must be from Australia, the fake nation. That's the only way. Joking aside, fine evening to you both. It's good to see someone from my state isn't nuts. Hope time treated you well. Lisha Thorne says, my employer pulled pharmacy records to see who was vaccinated. They denied, but were aware who had it without asking. Is it worth going after? It feels wrong. Opinion asked, not legal advice.
It depends.
Yeah, I guess the pharmacy. Who's your employer?
Right. Yeah.
What pharmacy said, yeah, here you go. Here's all the names of people we've given vaccinations to.
Well, so I imagine the scenario is that they've got a benefits department that is administering claims.
Right.
And they have access to there's something really preposterous about that, because you can go and get a COVID vaccine without implicating your insurance at all, because you can get it for free, in many places.
Yeah, you can get it at my grocery store. You just sit down at a table and they come up and jab you. If you have a fetish, you get like multiple ones.
But you know what? I bet you they do ask for your insurance information, because what they're doing is they're not charging you with copay, and they are billing the insurance company.
Okay.
Look, what I would do is I would call up. I would speak to a lawyer who's an expert on health confidentiality, on HIPAA law, and find out whether there's a private right of action for that kind of thing. That's a nice little angle. That's a very offensive, invasive violation of people's privacy, if in fact it could be proved that it were true. But as I think the questioner pointed out, it seems like they know, but it doesn't seem that they actually know that they know.
The hard thing with HIPAA is most people misidentify the party when they're going after HIPAA violation. In this one, it sounds like if what they say is true, there could be an implication that the pharmacy itself has violated HIPAA as a covered party under HIPAA, who is in custody of protected health information. A lot of people are like, well, my employer wants to know if I'm vaccinated. Can they ask me? It's like, well, yeah. Isn't that a violation of HIPAA? Well, not really, because you're the party who has the protected health information that they're asking, and you can either tell them or not. And if you don't tell them and they fire you and you're in an at-will state, that's basically tough luck.
They can also ask you whether or not you wear women's underwear. I mean, you can answer or not answer.
Yeah, the only person they couldn't ask was Hoover, because even though he did wear women's underwear, that was his free expression. He was a government official, and he had a right
Not in those days.
That's true, right? He didn't have notice and opportunity back then. Okay, I want to go back and briefly touch on a subject that I was referencing earlier, and that is the idea of these sort of public litigations and the public nature of litigations in the age of social media. So my part of my channel started actually with a New York lawsuit between two silly podcasters who had a bad breakup, and then one of them sued the other for somewhere between $20 and $400 million. The attorney in New York representing the plaintiff was a guy named Kevin Landau, and I pray to Christ you never interact with this guy, because he would be I hope, look, I wish you nothing but the best, but I hope you do, because it'll be funny if you do run into him. It was happened so far. It was one of the worst written complaints ever. He has he's a little bit famous, Kevin is, because he has an opinion from a New York district judge it was almost a sanction of him, but it was like a 73-page, I'm almost going to sanction you freaking moron. And the case was Almasiga, I think is the name of the plaintiff. She was the wife of a hitman for the cartels. And she went on a documentary in full light, like with her name on the thing. And she wasn't confidential at all. And then afterwards, she realized how dumb that was. And so she sued Univision, I think it was, and said, hey, I was supposed to be confidential. And they produced all of the contracts and everything that said, yeah, no, you were not, you did not make any confidentiality agreement. We told you in your contract that you would be in full light and full camera with your name attached and all that stuff. And so then this guy hired a handwriting expert to prove that she didn't sign the documents. And then that handwriting expert said, no, that's definitely her. So he fired that guy and hired another handwriting expert to bring in to say she didn't sign the documents. It's a big mess. He's great. But my second case.
He's great. Great at what?
He's great at getting DUIs. Look, he had his driver's license is literally permanently revoked. Forever.
Which means that he's driving all the time.
Yeah, well, I think he bikes a lot. Now that because he's from Michigan, but he's in New York. But anyway, so my second case though was James Damore versus Google. And so as my progression of covering these cases out of amusement and then out of a business model for covering cases has grown, what I've noticed is lawyers are not writing their cases with the idea that some drunken idiot on the internet is going to read them to thousands of people. And that when they do, that there's going to be implications to that. And that lawsuits are kind of, for a long time, have been written in this particular way without the consideration that there is maybe a public looking at it. But you were talking earlier about how you're on Twitter, you're building a platform, you're on YouTube, you've got your blog, because it's our duty as advocates to be out advocating for our client in the public square, not just in the courtroom. And so,
well, I would just point out that that is true, but I also meant that lawyers, it is traditionally considered to be incumbent on people, members of the legal profession, to be engaged in public affairs, to speak out on issues of public interest, not only their own cases. Certainly, when I was a younger lawyer, judges would often be very offended if they heard you commenting on a decision of theirs in the newspaper. Well,
Right.
You still have to be careful commenting about what a judge did in your case. But it is definitely a different era. And Harmeet Dhillon, is she on Fox every single night? If she's not, it's at least 3 nights a week talking about our cases. If she's not talking about our cases, she's sub-talking about our cases.
right.
That's part of the practice of law now. If you can do it, listen, do they need to do that at Davis Polk? Do they need to do that at Sherman and Sterling? Where they're doing, stuff for Wall Street and for, no, they're not. That's irrelevant.
Right. But you represented Gavin McInnes. Gavin McInnes is a guy with millions of followers, got a huge platform, built Vice News before going on to do his own thing. You can't take Gavin McInnes and be like, "Oh, look, we're not gonna have a public profile on this case." Right?
No, and in fact, I will tell you very explicitly that the complaint was drafted. And by the way, the motion to dismiss the complaint is still pending before Judge Thompson in the Middle District of Alabama after 2 years.
Oh my goodness, this case is still going on?
Nothing happened to this case. SPLC filed a motion to dismiss.
Yeah.
We filed, I think, a very effective opposition. So rather than rule on it, so far the court has chosen to do other things. 2 years. Fully briefed in April of 2019.
It's just the 2 years, though.
Just the 2 years.
It could have been more, but it's just the 2 years. You're fine.
In other words, if it were 7 years, we could maybe talk about, a petition for what is it? It is getting late for me here.
Wait, are you going for a Bible reference?
No.
Okay.
A petition for when you ask an appellate court to tell a district to tell the district court to do something.
A writ of mandamus.
Mandamus. In other words, there have been cases where people, but 2 years is considered to be a trivial amount of time to wait.
Right.
This is a senior status judge in MD, Alabama. Okay, he's so busy, he hasn't had time. But with all due respect, of course, to the judge who is a very distinguished jurist. So, but I will tell you that we were absolutely conscious of how the complaint, and we recognized at the time that, there was a very strong, knee-jerk reaction against these deplatforming cases. It was one of the early ones. But I made a point of putting that a picture of him embedded onto the first page of the complaint because I knew that it was going to be spread on the internet.
Now that you talk about this, Gavin, I almost feel like I talked about it and forgot it existed because it's been so long.
Yeah, I almost feel like you talked about it and made fun of it.
I probably did.
And I remember hearing part of it and saying, I'm not going to listen to this because this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
You would not be alone in that. You would not be alone in that crowd. But a lot's changed in 2 years.
Yes, it has.
And
And
so
if that complaint had been ruled on, thumbs up or thumbs down, it would have made a hell of a big difference, because what a lot of people don't understand is, even if you accept this fiction that calling somebody a racist is entirely a matter of opinion.
yes. Yeah,
Even if you accept
okay,
this
go ahead.
fiction, there were a series of other defamatory claims that were in the nature of beats his wife, burned down an orphanage, stuff that was self-standing defamatory. The complaint could not be dismissed. Therefore, it has never been dismissed.
Okay. Yes, I have it. I just checked. February 7th, 2019, and February 8th. It was a 2-part live stream in which I read this complaint.
And I remember, so you don't say that. You don't trust me. Every word, every single word was carefully weighed. I knew exactly what I was doing.
You're probably right.
It was never dismissed.
But see, that was.
I hope that Judge Thompson has a very long life, and that we.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want him to die and pass it off to another judge who would wait another 2 years. That'd be terrible.
Especially since all the other judges in that district were appointed by President Trump or some other Republican. That would, as I said, outstanding jurists should have a long and healthy many years ahead of him.
Look, in defense of me, because this is what's important. I'm a narcissist on YouTube, obviously. In defense of me, most of my criticism was of Gavin McInnes in general. But the other thing, regardless of how high profile he is, he's done some funny things. And of course, so have I. That's fine. And people can criticize me.
I hope you haven't done some of the things he's done that don't strike me as funny as he is fun. I'll tell you this much. He's fun company. If you take a plane.
Oh, I bet he's great. I would love to hang out with him.
Well, you might think that, but keep in mind, this is the guy who has a wooden leg.
He has a wooden leg?
Meaning that he can drink infinite amounts of alcohol.
Oh, I thought you meant he had a literal wooden leg.
No. On wooden arm he has, but no. He has an incredible tolerance for alcohol.
Okay.
But he falls asleep on the plane. But then after drinking, a cask of scotch, he gets up, like the plane lands, he gets up. You can put him behind the wheel. I mean, what a man.
Yeah. So but yeah, I'll have to go back and look at what I said. I think it's at the time I was saying it though, there were a bevy of cases coming out.
Yes, and there were a lot of garbage cases. But hey, listen, I thought it would be cute to not even pretend that I wasn't aware of that, but I really didn't want, because I don't know.
I had no idea you wrote that. Like, I completely forgot that I even did the review of that case. That's great. That makes me so happy.
Perfect. But it is getting late here in New Jersey.
Yes. No, it is. We talked about this. It's 2 a.m. your time, which is really late. And you're on Real People hours still, because you still have a Real People job. And
I'm a lawyer. I'm the New York office of a San Francisco law firm. So I can get away with quite a bit, but because of my lifestyle as an Orthodox Jew, I have to get up and I have to go to synagogue in the morning. And I also have a study session before I go to synagogue. You've heard all this from Joe, so you know this kind of stuff. So I do have to kind of, get up eventually, and we're closer to that time than but I did tell you I'd go till 2, and I'm happy to have done so. It's been a great deal of fun. But did any of your paid chatters not get a chance to have their question answered?
There's some.
You didn't get the answer to finish your question about public advocacy, actually. Except that we both agree that times are different, And you have it is really a balancing act. You do have to be careful of what you say and what you do. I mean, in a case that I'm myself involved in, I will report, and this is actually a sensibility that I developed when I was blogging more than doing social media, unless you consider that social media, but micro blogging. In those days, I was blogging, the likelihood of confusion blog. I would keep people abreast of developments in the case without commenting on them. The problem is when something goes badly for your client, it's not necessarily in your client's interest to broadcast that.
Right.
The problem is, then it looks as if you're not talking about the bad and the ugly as well as the good. But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, the question, I guess the question I have, because look, at the end of the day, I'm chasing dollar signs. There's a cult, a sort of small crop of online commentators on YouTube that have grown some pretty big audiences commenting on these cases. But then more than that, there's a real roving band of degenerate idiots. And I say that with all of the love that's possible when I call them degenerate idiots, called Law Twitter. And, which I don't have enough.
Does that include the snobs of Appellate Twitter?
Oh God, is there an Appellate Twitter?
Oh yeah. And I'm not allowed. I mean, I gave up a long time ago. I'm not allowed to work my way into those threads. I only won the slants case in the Supreme Court.
You've never even seen an appeals court, you dummy.
I didn't clerk. It's all about clerk. So yeah, go back to your Law Twitter point.
No,
I'm enjoying this. This is going straight into the veins.
I know nothing about Appellate Twitter. I didn't even know it was a thing, and now I'm very seriously contemplating suicide. But no, because Law Twitter is this gaggle of lawyers, and I'm gonna say this as a social media lawyer, right? Like you can, I'll call them failed lawyers because they spend all their time on social media. I'll call me a failed lawyer too if that helps appease the masses. That's great. That's good. I'll take it. I'll take one for the team. These guys come out there and they're the Will Actually of the law profession, and I hate it, which is probably exactly
and they're all anonymous, right?
Yeah, but it's probably exactly how you felt when you saw my Gavin McInnes video. You're like, oh God, this guy's fucking insufferable.
But there's your face and there's your name, okay?
Right.
So you're putting, you're prepared. If I wanted to mix it up with you, I could have. And I decided, you can never really win. You can't win defending your work.
Oh God, I bet you could have kicked my ass though. It would have been so funny.
Well, and then what? And then what if I would have lost?
That would have been bad.
And it would be bad if I lose now anyway. But yeah, no, the Law Twitter, and of course, also let's face it, the cluster around one particular Grand Poobah. Who's
Ken White,
yeah,
the Pope, the literal, he has self-anointed Popehat,
whose acolytes I just run to him with developments in my. They read Pacer, looking for Ron Coleman cases.
I'm gonna do this, except I'm blocked by Ken, so it won't work.
And to throw them, so Ken unblocked me because I said somewhere, Ken, you insult me and then hide behind a block? Is that what Popehat's all about? So now we're mutually unblocked and muted. But these pukes, these guys, what have they accomplished? How many cases have they tried? And of course, listen, man, I'm never gonna get to sleep now. I may as well stay up for the third hour.
Look, I love these guys because you have I have collected a gaggle of Law Twitter haters. They hate me. literally hate me. Like you said, this is going into your veins. I have taken your heroin needle, sir. I have pulled the plunger back out and I have injected the heroin blood mixture into my own. And now I'm not only heroin high, but I'm also a New York lawyer by proxy. I have nailed it. I love the concept of law Twitter because it's literally a bunch of people who don't practice law going out. There are some of them who do, but most of them don't. They do this drive-by dunking on some issue of the case. They seem to have no concept of law past like 1978 or whatever, because they don't remember that we live. This is the topic I was discussing is that we live in this era where anybody can get a Pacer account and pay 10 cents a page. You don't have to be a lawyer to get these documents and say something about them and comment on them. And many states are moving towards this sort of online distribution and transparency. And so
Right.
it's growing. And if you have any level of publicity, and that literally means if you're on there is a court that found a guy to be a public figure in a defamation case because he was a jet ski salesman in a group of jet ski retailers. And they're like, well, he's a limited purpose public figure in this group of 30 people. And so you don't have to have any notoriety anymore to have your case pop up in some small cult circle following. But law Twitter will always be there, no matter how small the case is. They will always be there to dunk on something a lawyer's doing. Never considering
biting the ankles of the people who are out there actually doing it. They put nothing on the line. I also have this, by the way. There are cases of there are WhatsApp group of Orthodox Jewish lawyers who I get reports back from someone said Ron, you forgot to file my paralegal forgot to file I don't know a rule 7A disclosure or whatever it was. I mean, let me manage my docket, please. I don't need I'm doing like we're all talking about like it has definitely become a voyeuristic time but yeah, this is about anonymity. Cowards. They're cowards. And you know how look, there's nothing more cowardly than subtweeting someone, right?
Yeah.
And when I pick up that someone, because the reason I picked up this recent comment because someone decided to tag me in a reply. So I went up come on.
Yeah.
But then you realize
I hate when I get
you're living rent free. And I wrote several different replies and I said, no, don't dignify them. You're living rent free in these people. They'll never accomplish anything. They'll never accomplish anything.
No, I know that's why they have so much time to tweet. I mean, that's the end of the day.
So my wife can't understand why I have so much time to tweet.
You don't tweet as much as some of these people. You really don't.
No, I better not.
And your tweets are actually useful. Okay, I've got two very short questions, and then I'll let you go, if that's okay.
I think that's fine. I could go anytime I want, right? I'm free to leave.
You could leave.
Am I under arrest?
No, you're actually being detained right now. Do you hear that? You probably don't hear the knock because you're in the basement of racism or whatever.
This is custodial detention. Okay.
That one guy says, Ron, question, does a company terminating service with you when there was a contract, TOS, EULA, etc., some such agreement, and have given you no notice as to what constitute on its own a prima facie case for bad faith? I think we were discussing this earlier, right? Like that's kind of the whole idea around this obviating of 230 is the question of faith.
Right.
So I don't know if we need to readdress it, but if you want to say anything on it, you could.
No, I think we've addressed it, and I'm happy to. By the way, for somebody with 135,000 followers on Twitter, my YouTube channel is a joke compared to yours. I only started doing it a couple of months ago, but I'm preposterously accessible. People want to ask me questions in DMs and stuff. Anything rather than do my real work. So
he answered my DMs very quickly. Of course, look, Ron was following me for. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke, actually.
I was waiting. I was waiting
like,
after your February 2019 two-part series. You were actually laughing. Who was on the show with you? Is what I want to know.
No, that was just me.
It was just you. Oh,
I'm pretty sure it was just me. But the reality was I was mostly just laughing at the loss. Like, I want Gavin to win against the SPLC. Don't get me wrong. That would be the funniest thing on the entire planet if the SPLC got fisted or whatever. But that being said, I think that was before Oberlin too, which changes things a little bit. Was, can you win a case based on this accusation of racism? So I hope you win that. That one guy says, "Hey Ron, can you in a few sentences explain to people why network neutrality is a stupid concept in terms of law or how telecommunications works? I am in the industry and I have a hard time explaining it. I thought you might have a good summary." Do you do anything with net neutrality?
I don't. And I probably could give you a couple sentences, but not at this time of night.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, Ron, thank you so much for coming on.
Really a pleasure. I had a lot of, as you could see, I had a lot of laughs, and it was nice talking to you after you hurt me so deeply so many years ago.
You're like, this.
The way you undermined my confidence so much, and I never was able to emerge from my shell.
This fucking Minnesota lawyer, I'm gonna find him. I'm gonna rip his legs off. God, I'm gonna feed him to Gavin McInnes after he drinks a cask of whiskey. Well, thank you, man. I really do appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun, and yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime. But I will let you peacefully go to sleep. So
thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Whoa, my head is huge. Hold on, I'll fix that in just a second. Give me a moment. Woo. Where are we? We're getting there. Wonder Twin powers activate. There we go. There we go. Oh, that was a good show, I think. I think that was a great interview. I really appreciate. I had no idea. I had no idea that he was the lawyer for Gavin McInnes. That makes me so unreasonably happy. And that he came on. He didn't tell me that at all. That's a complete surprise. Cause I've been DMing Ron for a little while. I talked to him a long time ago to set some stuff up. And then we're like, yeah, we'll do a show. It'll be great. But then we never got around to it. Oh my God. That's him. Look at this. No. Check this out. Here it is. I just pulled up the Gavin McInnes case. Ronald Coleman. Oh, that was amazing. That was amazing. I had no idea. This thing, 61 pages. God, I'm gonna have to like listen to that in my sleep or whatever to see how badly I dumped on it. I think if I remember, and I barely remember even talking about it. I barely remember even talking about this case. I wouldn't have remembered except for Ron bringing it up. I was like, God, I want him to win, but I don't think this is the way to go. I think that was my conclusion. I might be wrong on that, but that's what I feel in my balls. In my balls. So, God, I hope. Oh, shit. God, that's never happened to me before. Which I say to all the ladies, look, that's never happened. All the ladies is literally just lady rackets, but that's never happened to me before. I've never invited you on my show and found out that I shit on your lawsuit 2 years ago. Oh God. What a disaster that is. What was this? How many views was this? It's only 8,200 views. Barely anybody even watched it. That was amazing. It was right before the Vic case blew up. So, you got to understand, when I did that show, I was at somewhere around 20 to 25,000 subscribers. And I was like, I am so fucking huge. So I got like 25,000 subscribers. It was so cool. It was amazing. And then the Vic case would happen, and I would shoot straight to like 70 to 75,000 subscribers over the next couple months right after it. God, it was great. I love it. I love that Ron came on the show after that. I love that he never told me about it. Never once did he say in the DMs, like, you're that jackass that did this. And I actually hope you die in a fire, you piece of garbage. So that's great. Do I still have a foreskin? No, I'm very much clipped. But Porcelain has a great Gavin documentary, and you're immortalized in it talking about the lawsuit. That sounds good. That sounds good. Remember when you had a 6K subs? I thought you were a big deal then. Or I thought I was a big deal then, to be honest. Yeah, man. When I remember when I got 5,000 subscribers, I was like, I have convinced 5,000 stupid fucking idiots to click subscribe. Never in my life. I was literally just drunk shit posting. And here I am. 5,000 people. It's infinity. It's infinity. It's literally, when I did that 5,000 subscriber show, you have to understand. That is twice the population of the city I live in. It's twice the population. Like when I go to the grocery store, not only would everyone in that grocery store have been subscribed to me, but everyone they know and their families and their cousins would have all been subscribed. It's crazy to think about. It's crazy. 10 times my high school graduating class at 5,000 subscribers. It's a weird thing. It's an unfathomable number. I look back now at almost 100 at what am I at? 160 something. At 164, closing in on 165, I think. But I look back now, and it seems so long ago, and it's still like every single subscriber is an unfathomable amount. So it's great. I love it. Eldon Bainling, don't worry, we've got a movie night tonight. We've got a movie night tonight. Axe Lion says, you know, if you keep refusing the balls question, you will lose your branding. It's like Rogan's DMT question. Now, look, most guests definitely navigate the balls question, which is admirable. Ron did this beautiful thing. Do you notice what Ron did? He said, what is this? Is this some kind of inside joke that you do? Is this some kind of thing on your channel or whatever? And he's fine. He starts listening very intently, respectfully. Ron is a man of discernment and respect. And he's like, okay, I'm listening. And then I said one thing. I said, look, a lot of my followers watch anime. And immediately he's like, I'm done. Nope. Done with that. Get out. Fucking anime. No. I don't want anything to do with it. I knew nothing. Anime doesn't exist. Nuke it again. That was him. He knows. This man knows. That is a discerning and wise individual. He has got it. He has got it. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. Okay. Topics unrelated to Ron Coleman. Unrelated. By the way, you did hit 1,000 likes. I've got to finish this shot, and then I will do another. We will do a movie tonight. I think we'll be over there pretty soon. I think this is going to be a little bit of a truncated show. And that's a good thing. When I talked to Ron about this, he said basically, look, he's going to be up in the morning. So 2 a.m. my time was about as much as he could do. Or 1 a.m. my time was about as much as he could do. Stayed a little longer, which was great. Great stuff. Good sport. Good sport. And I think he's doing really, really important work. Harmeet Dhillon is doing really, really important work. And their law firm is necessary. It is necessary in the age of current censorship and social media tyranny. So that's great stuff. That being said, I'll talk a little bit. We'll read some super chats, and then we'll be done for the night. Tomorrow will be a standard show. And we'll see what happens for the rest of the week. Oh, excuse me. Boomerotic says, oh, you're almost done like Yellow Flash this past weekend that went 7 hours. That motherfucker can drag on a show forever. But no, I think we'll get through this pretty quickly. It's interesting. This is not a commentary or anything else. It's an observation. And I'm sure I'm going to get hammered on for this, but that's okay. When I have a new guest on, no matter how great the show is, no matter how learned and wise the guest is, please do not take this the wrong way. I know how this is going to sound. The super chat revenue and the super chat volume is always very low. That's okay. 100% fine. I'm not asking people to donate. I'm not asking for anything like that. Nothing. I don't do that. In general, I'm shitty at it. And I also don't like it, which is why I'm shitty at it. That being said, it's an observation. Super chat revenue is typically low. The number of super chats that come in is typically low. And that's just a reality of having a guest on, which is weird. It's usually, I think for a lot of creators, it's kind of the opposite. The opposite. When people get a high profile guest on, they tend to get more super chats. With you guys, it's like, I don't trust this person yet, or whatever it is. I don't know. I have no idea, but it tends to be a little lower, even though I think the stream goes quite well. Thank God I do not do live streams for the purpose of super chat. That is a fringe benefit. I do live streams for the purpose of my own autism, which is which is just, it's way easier for me to sit and just have a conversation with you or someone else than it is for me to plan a show. I'm not great at planning. I don't like doing it. I like to just hang out and talk. So with that, it's just something I've observed over the past couple years of doing this. And so I know it when I'm booking in a new guest, especially, that's probably how it's going to go. But that's okay. It also keeps kind of the conversation flowing. And maybe that's a weird sort of twist about it, but it's cool. You're still waiting for that James O'Keefe stream? Gotta be great. That'd be great. All right, I finished my last naturally poured drink. I'm drinking Surly Brewing Company here in Minneapolis. They're Furious whiskey. So, the other thing I notice is when I get a new guest, I don't know if this is you guys or YouTube. I really don't. I kind of think it's YouTube. When I get a new guest on, the amount of people watching is actually typically a little bit lower. Now, today's views were pretty good. We peaked in the 1200 range. But I think YouTube I know YouTube suppresses my channel in general, but I think they suppress the guest shows. I really do. It's weird. Got to get Gary over here sometime. What, Nerdrotic? God, I'd love to. I like that guy a lot. I think it's great. I think he's good. Views. I don't want to be Mr. Views. I don't. Look, again, these are not, they're literally just observations. I'm not complaining or anything. I am doing great. I am doing wonderful. My channel is wonderful. My channel is growing. I have zero. I have the greatest job on the fucking planet. All right. I stay up late at night, drinking whiskey, talking to interesting people. And that includes the chat. So why on earth would I complain about that? I don't. And I don't do it for super chats or whatever. But when I'm, my job, right, is YouTube. And so part of my job performance analysis, since I don't have a boss, is me. And I look at metrics and I have to try and gauge two different aspects. I have to gauge the literal financial and raw view numbers. And I also have to gauge sort of the intangible aspects of it. And there's a ton of intangibles that come into play as well. And that's why, look, if I was just a numbers guy, I would never do anything. But just numbers people are wrong. They're literally wrong. Because if I never interviewed anybody, there'd be a heat death of my channel and go away. That's why the just numbers people are wrong. You can't just do that. You have to take mitigations here and there for other intangible benefits. I think having Ron on the show, especially with that great clip about Gavin McInnes, I may even clip that out because it was so fucking funny. I may even clip that out. But to bring up that Gavin McInnes stuff and for me to have made fun of a lawsuit that he wrote is so perfect that you can't buy that. There is no dollar value that makes that. It's like, well, if I would have only gotten a few more, doesn't exist to me. So anyway, like I said, I've always maintained on the show, I don't do it for super chats. I'm not doing the live show for money. I'll do the live show. Even if you guys didn't pay me $1, I would still do a live show because that is how I operate. I do the other, the shorter videos to supplement that stuff and to try and that is all. Every short video I do is a complete grift. So get grifted. I hope you enjoy them. And I hope you enjoy them twice or 3,000 times. Maybe if you have a bunch of PS4s rigged up in a server farm in the Ukraine, you could just have them loop on my video instead of FIFA tokens or whatever, you bigots. But no, that's all. That's the grift. This is what I like to do. I love to talk to people. I love to tell stories, and that's the best job on the planet. So do a show about Twitch with a Gundam with Gundam. I love Gundam. I invited him on the show one time, and his response was, "I don't know what we'd talk about," which wasn't. It was a very polite no. So I haven't bothered him about it. I would love it. I think he's hilarious. I think he's fucking funny. I think he does great work. He has a very similar sort of sense of humor and humanity that I do. And I, maybe I just need to tell him it doesn't matter what we talk about because I think you're funny, and I want to tell you that on a live stream. I don't know, but he's good. You'd have to talk about Twitch thoughts. I can talk about Twitch thoughts all day. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll make it a competition for him. I don't know. I invited him to talk about DSP, and he's like, there's other people who are better at DSP than me or something like that. But no, I think we could put together a good show. I haven't talked to him in a long time. He's not... There's no... It was just the one time I asked him. He had turned me down. I really don't like bothering people. Talk about Ridge Wallet, says Eric D. Okay, listen. This is not a Ridge ad. But I wanted to tell you guys that Ridge Wallet has signed me up through the rest of the year. Believe it or not, that's you. That's not me. That's you guys. Ridge Wallet has decided to extend their sponsorship of the show for the rest of the year. So there will be a couple Ridge ads a month through the rest of 2021, which is freaking awesome. That's because, I was talking to the Ridge guy the other day, and he said, look, numbers from your campaign are good. People are buying. He didn't tell me what. He didn't tell me how much. I have no idea what that even means. But he says people are buying stuff, and that's great. So we want to extend the deal that we have with you through the end of the year. And I said, yeah, let's do it. It's great. Okay. And by the way, they have some really cool new products that I'll talk about in the next Ridge ad that I do. This is not part of my official Ridge ads because I don't want to do that with another person attached to the stream. Seems weird. Excuse me. I'll do it tomorrow though. But they have the Damascus. It's a laser etched Damascus pattern, which is a very fucking cool wallet. The other one they have, the newest one, is these topographical maps that are etched onto the wallet. So it's a topography map, which is like a line and then a line around it and a line around it, and gets bigger. It's supposed to show elevation of some famous U.S. destinations on the Ridge wallet. And I think they're pretty cool or whatever, but we'll talk about those next time. Those are on the new things. The other thing I briefly want to discuss, and I'll probably really hardcore grift on this tomorrow. So if you don't want to hear about drama, well, stop lying to yourself. Everybody loves drama. But if you don't want to hear me hearing about drama tomorrow, I will go through what happened in my Discord. What happened in my Discord was an absolute disaster. A napalm mix of autism and spurgery grew into epic and epidemic proportions. So we will talk about someone who, quote unquote, allegedly watched the show from day one. From day one. Who then went into full Karen mode. Grew the headshot cut hair, right? Like the swoop and then the every nurse on the planet grew the headshot cut. Wanted to talk to my manager, even though I am the manager. DM'd every Discord mod and admin, talking about how I needed to refund them their $25. And all of that. And I will show you that I did not and would not. Look, could I be the grift champion, the fucking champion of 2020, if I refunded some dummy his money? Could I refund that money? No. On principle, I'm obligated to not refund it. Could you just not though, bro? Yeah, so I let's just say his shit got pushed in by me. And I'm fully proud of fantastic one-liners I said, like, try pulling the burger out of your vagina, you fucking baby. And all sorts of stuff. Tons of drama. So you can come find out about that from me tomorrow. We're going to do a show on that. We'll talk about the drama between me and Nate the lawyer, which I want to be very clear tonight is we have no drama between us. It's a very friendly conversation back and forth, and we are all good. We are all good on that. But we will talk about the drama with me and Nate the lawyer, and then we may, if I have permission, I'll ask the person. But if I have permission, someone I know has been going through, quote unquote, quite a lot with with a particular crowd from a case we have covered. Okay. A particular crowd from a case I have covered here on the channel has gone after one of my wonderful Discord members, and that is putting them in some sort of strife. So we'll talk about that as well. It's great. But and whatever other drama could come up over the next day. You never know. This is the best part of being online, is you literally never know what someone's going to say about you day to day or what they're going to dig up day to day. I'm not going to forget that you're that California guy now, so yeah, you have to live with it. So, whoo, whoo, hoo, hoo, hoo. Anyway, and long story short, if you guys are familiar with the person who's being attacked, I am trying to procure some documents in a legal fashion around that scenario, and if I'm able to do so, oh boy, let them dox me. Let them dox me all day. I will drop my dick on their table. Fuck them. Fuck them. Oh, Ken Jennings says, I don't mind if you talk about it. Go nuts. Fuck those Karens. Okay, so briefly, people in question, or the person in question is Ken Jennings. The Karens in question are part of the Sophie Long case. We've talked about the Sophie Long case before. That is a case of a little girl in Texas who was caught in a very, very bitter fucking divorce. And there's some real questions about who is a good and bad actor in this. But if you talk about it and you're opposed to the mom, Kelly Long, apparently Kelly Long's attorney is willing to threaten your First Amendment rights suggest that somehow you, as a non-party, are bound by a court sealing order, even though the court has no jurisdiction over you, and threaten you, and perhaps even be the source of the doxing that occurred. And if that's the case, you better believe I'm going to fucking call it out. As long as I have permission to do so, we're going to talk about it tomorrow. So, that being said, let the Sophie Spurgs come into my chat and shit it up all over. I will shit right back in their mouths. I don't even care. Have fun. Have fun with that. I eagerly await their participation. That being said, so what else is there? I need to talk to my man Drex. He's got an issue to talk to me about. I feel really bad. Every day he wants to talk to me. I keep falling asleep or having some big task that I can't talk to him. So I'm going to try and talk to him tomorrow. But we're going to have a fun time. We're going to have a fun time tomorrow. Let's just say that. So tomorrow is going to be drama central. The main three themes are going to be me fighting with Nate, which is a minor theme. It's going to be me fighting with Eris, who is a complete fucking moron who claims to have watched my show forever, which is almost guaranteed not true. And then finally, because I want to drag it out, we're going to talk Sophie Long's case and where that is. Because there's been a lot of major developments in that case, and there's a narrative going out right now, and there's some people protesting a little too much. So, yeah. But we'll figure out tomorrow. Tonight is tonight. Let's go ahead and wrap up this show. We will have a movie night over on Twitch. And then tomorrow, I was going to do it last week, but the video game night shows got really late. And so Thursday and Friday both went really long. So we didn't end up doing them. But tomorrow, I will start. Oh, Jesus. Doki Doki Literature Club. I am working on... so many of you have said big brain panels and Chad Dad chats. Yes. I want to do both of them. I love both of them. I like all those guys. Also, Ty has proposed a specific show to me. I don't know if it's going to be on here or on Locals. But finally, my last thing before we read the chats. Plug for my Locals. K2law.locals.com. Get grifted every month and love it. Locals live streaming is a thing now. And when I have a few minutes out of my day, to hang out with the Locals chat, I love to do these new short live streams over there. They're limited to 1 hour at this point in time. So you know I can't ramble on too long. There is no super chat. There is no anything because you already super chatted me by subscribing to Locals. And I am able to interact with chat in near real time. There are more of those chats coming. I have no mechanism by which to grant access to Patreon subscribers, Subscribe Star subscribers, or YouTube members. I don't have a way to do it. If you want access to that content, cancel anything else you have. Join Locals. If you're like, oh my God, I just spent X amount of dollars on Patreon or YouTube or whatever, send me a message. Send me an email. Send me a something and say, hey, I just signed up on this other service, but I want access to Locals. I will give you a free month on Locals. I will make the transition painless. I will lube you up. I will give you all of the anti-pain cream ointments that you need. I will help you transition over to Locals. It's really a fucking amazing platform. The live chat on it is far better. YouTube is over here with pleb chat. Oh, we have text. We have text, and sometimes you can share links. Locals, you can share GIFs. You can share images. You can have emojis. You can do all sorts of stuff in chat. It's a way better chat. It's fantastic. It's great. Come over to Locals. I am still doing some streams that will be cross-pollinated, Locals and YouTube and stuff like that for exclusive content. But I would love it, would really love it, if everyone moved to Locals, because I think their live streaming is better. I think it's better than here, in all honesty. So that being said, if you want to check me out over there. And again, if you have paid to subscribe to me on YouTube, or if you have paid to subscribe to me on Patreon or Subscribestar, send me an email or something. Tell me, hey, I want to switch to Locals. I will send you a link with a promo code that will move you over for free. You will not have to like double dip or whatever, or worry about payments. Please come over. The water is great. Water is great. So that being said, it's the worst ad on the planet. God, I'm bad at ads. Why does Ridge even like me? Oh, I'm working on another grifting, and that grifting is an ad opportunity. I'll explain more when I get the thing locked down. Let's do these chats. Okay. Sorry about that. Look, if you don't promote, I'm the worst I still am the worst salesman. I'm like, oh my God, should I mention my thing? Got it. Timothy Reaper says, what work of fiction do you and your guests think most accurately depicts the U.S. legal system, and why is it the movie Idiocracy? There's not much that needs to be said other than, I'm not guilty. That's not what that other lawyer says. Great. And one guy says, hey, Ron, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate all you're doing to defend our rights. He also says, Ron, Alex isn't a fan of the Udon. You do know. I know Alex is mainly an act, but during that act, over the years, he's done a lot to demonize families like the Rothschilds and mislead people about the events of 9/11, maybe not exactly worthy of admiration. You don't have to agree with the message to appreciate the messenger. Is that the way to say that? You don't have to necessarily agree, because first of all, Alex isn't talking about Jews. Alex is talking about globalist Zionists. You got to get that right. Second of all, Alex is a persona, and the fact that he is able to amass a following that he has nothing to do with the validity of what he says. Because I know it seems like it does, because he's like, listen, mermaids are real and mermaids are paid off by George Soros. Whatever it is, that's fine. That doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Alex Jones has a following because people like Alex Jones. And recognizing that sheer charisma is I think what we were talking about before. Unless the messenger is acting in bad faith, lol. I don't know that he is, though. I think everybody could do for a good watch of Alex Jones on Viva Barnes. Viva Barnes. By the way, first of all, it's funny enough watching Viva squirm every time Alex Jones goes into a rant longer than 1 second. Beautiful, terrific, wonderful rants. Alex Jones, a true specimen of ranting. Look, I've seen a lot of ranters in my day. Nobody rants like Alex Jones. Viva getting visibly uncomfortable every few minutes is great. But in general, that interview with Viva, Robert Barnes, and Alex is fantastic. And I think it shows a different side of Jones that people need to consider. And one of the great things he said was, I've said a lot of stuff over my career, but I never, and I know that I've hurt people and I know I've made some mistakes, but I never did it with malice. I never did it intentionally. I think that's something to consider on Alex Jones. Now, next, Balls on Futa says, Ron, can you please get Michael Malice and Rekieta linked up to do a show together? Rekieta, please. That would make a riotously funny show. I'll send a message to Ron. It's always weird saying, hey, can you get me linked up with this other person? But yeah, Michael Malice would be a good guest. Bad Dragon says, question for Ron. When somebody hears your name, are they expecting the giant black bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman? He says, that one guy says, the reason I was asking, by the way, which was about net neutrality stuff, is specifically because you guys said if there's a disparity between who is getting kicked off, it's prima facie for bad faith. Didn't say anything about whether or not giving you a reason for your termination itself could be. He also said, by the way, I can't tell you what to do, but I do vote for retiring this Futa horseshit, at least when you have real guests, if nothing else. The chat can take a backseat to your career once in a while. We'll understand. Real friends want you to live your best life. Look, it's up to the chat. Some people, I've met these people. I know these people. I love these people. Some people grab a joke and they ride it into the dirt harder than a $2 whore with an unlimited hour limit. They do it. They rail it over and over. They tie it up, put it in the closet for later, and then they pull it back out and they pound it down into the dirt again. I don't know. Some people like that. It's how they do jokes. It's how they get laughs. It's how they interact. And that's up to them. I don't control the chat. Chat doesn't control me, except for the chat very much does control me with what they put in their super chats. But that being said, my guests are all grown adults. At the end of the day, if you guys go, oh, this is a serious guest, maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't talk about Futanari with them, that's on the chat. If my chat does talk about Futanari, my guest's like, this is degenerate, guess what? I'm not going to make my guest answer any question. We're all grown adults. The chat, I think, is grown adults, but certainly me and the guest are, and we can navigate those things. Pepsi Man says, if you have the time, here's the timestamp with your cameo in the doc. It's barely a minute long. If you don't end up watching, I hope everyone checks out Porcelain's channel. His videos are based. Let's take a look. Oh, God. This is going to be a fucking disaster. Oh, no. I see my face. Let's see. Holy cats, guys. I was doing great. And then you guys got me to 1,000 likes. Now I'm a little bit tossed. Let's see what Mr. Porcelain has to say. This has 141,000 views. Holy shit, based. And non-cuck-pilled.
Forcing the SPLC to offer settlement and retract. Nick Rekieta, a legal YouTuber and champion of the Stand With Vic campaign against the unrapeable Monica Rial.
First of all, he says unrapeable Monica Rial. I'm dying. Look at how I look. Look at those sideburns. This is in my old house, I think. No, that would be here. That would be in this house. Brand new. I just gotten into this house. Fantastic. Unrapeable Monica Rial. Let's go back just a second. Let's hear that again.
A legal YouTuber and champion of the Stand With Vic campaign against the unrapeable Monica Rial, spoke of his issues with Gavin's complaint against the SPLC.
false and defamatory. Oh my gosh. A phone autocorrecting could have drafted a better document. This is... Oh, shit. That was... Oh, God. Why did Ron come on this show? Oh, my goodness gracious. A phone autocorrecting could have drafted a better document. Jeez, I would have never come on my show after that. Holy crap. Wow. Falsely states that he devised what it falsely describes as the most fertile in real life recruiting ground for white supremacists and anti-Semites within today's organized far right. These are not actionable statements. I'm sorry. Like some of the other ones are potentially damaging statements of at least opinion that could be construed as fact, but this stuff is just opinion pieces. It's just op-ed.
Meanwhile,
Whoa! Oh no! Oh God! I deserve all of the hate. Look, if Ron wins that, I think we all owe him something, like a bunch of seltzer water or whiskey or whatever it is. If Ron wins that, I'm gonna send him something. And if he wins and I'm wrong on that, I'm gonna definitely do a video. And then it's gonna be a video of me like licking the envelope. And sending him the most expensive bottle of whiskey I can find or whatever. And then yeah, I would encourage all of you. I'm not saying you guys have to, but I would encourage all of you to do whatever you need to do. To say, by the way, we love you, and Nick is stupid. Speaking of which, Ron's whatchamacallit, his link is in the description. I think he's already gained over 500 followers from this show alone, which is great. And he is a very smart guy in the active practice against some of the worst people on the planet. And that there's not much more that can be said about that. He's a good dude. Bad Dragon Knight says, any chance of having a 40K show asking about GW being bitches to all the fan-made content like animations, saying, will you work for us? And also, whether you work for us or not, shut down your Patreon and demonetize all your videos or else. That is a shit thing that 40K is doing right now. Games Workshop is making a very stupid fucking decision. Even, I don't know that they're legally right. First of all, in the US, I'm pretty sure they're not. Because the concept of Space Marines and fan art being a thing, I'm pretty sure they're on very rocky legal grounds in the US. I don't know UK copyright law. I couldn't tell you. But they're not marketing these products as official Games Workshop stuff. Pretty clear. These are fan-created images, fan-created art, and fan-created art is something separate. They're not stealing IP from Games Workshop. In fact, if you think of one of the most famous ones, although this one did actually go to work for Games Workshop, what was it called? The Space Marine miniseries, I guess, involving the silent guys. What the fuck was their name? Oh my gosh, I love this one. It was the first one to do Space Marines. First of all, let's get this clear. Fans are doing better Space Marine animations. Astartes, yeah. That's right. Thank you, chat. Jeez, I've had too much to drink. Fans are doing better animated videos about what Space Marines do than Games Workshop. Because Games Workshop is a bunch of pussies on this issue. They're like, well, we don't want the Space Marines to look too tough, so they make them clunky, and they run all slow, and they're lumbering. Space Marines aren't lumbering. Space Marines, they have something called transhuman awe. They move wrong. They're too fast. They're too nimble. They're so big. They shouldn't move in the way that they do. Their armor is so bulky. They shouldn't be able to chop you up with the sword. And so regular humans, when they encounter a space marine, they see something called transhuman dread. No official, none, zero official Games Workshop properties encompass transhuman dread. Never do you watch a space marine on a Games Workshop animation, cutscene, or whatever and go, oh yeah, that's faster than I expected. They always draw them as lumbering beasts. Even in the best game they've ever done, which was Space Marine, they were big lumbering beasts. And they would be thundering if they wanted to. But Space Marines can also move very quietly. Their physicality is something that's beyond humanity. So even though they're wearing 400 pounds of armor, they could move silently if they wanted to. The whole idea of Space Marines is that they are so fast, so nimble, and so agile while being so big that your brain literally can't comprehend it. So that's the source of the confusion. And they've failed. The closest they have ever come, and it's not perfect, is the Astartes animation. And the fact that they're excluding these fan properties, which do a better job of representing them than they do, is a stupid move. It's free advertisement to hundreds of thousands, even millions of potential mini purchasers that otherwise wouldn't. Anyway. Malik Foxon says, I don't know if I told you, but I got that promotion. I'm training for Rep 2 now, but learning phones is confusing stuff. Either way, moving up in the world, I'm still serious. If I get a position where I can get you a business internet, it's all yours. Thank you, Malik. Not George Soros says, how you know about the mermaids? I know everything. And then finally, that one guy says, I don't know. Alex said a bunch of really nasty shit about people and then said in court filings he didn't believe any of it. I really don't buy that he wasn't at least acting with disregard for the well-being of others. He's an adult too, as far as I know. That one guy, I actually disagree with Ron on this point, but he said Alex made a bunch of mistakes that he'll never be able to get away from. I think that covers what you were talking about, personally. Next, 5 Simple Words says, hey, Nick, if I got that Photoshop picture Stegus linked in your chat commissioned, would you mount it behind you when you stream? I don't even know what that is. Macca Jr. says, hasn't even started and you have more likes than Majin Buu Real has fans. Maybe they will ask you to be Mr. Popo for a live-action DBZ movie. Oh, Mr. Popo, the most racist character in Dragon Ball Z. Oh, Masa Goku, will you please buck break me? Eclipse Warlord says, hello, Nick. Hello, Ron Coleman. Hail, chat. Ascended Not So Handsome Jack says, compared to Ron's followers, we have the biggest, girthiest foodies with the droppiest shaved balls. You're welcome, Nick. Ash Ukihime says, hey, Nick, yesterday was my birthday. Hey, happy birthday, Ash. I was hoping you'd wish me a happy birthday. It'd been a rough couple of weeks, and I can use some cheering up. Thanks. Ash Ukihime. Buddy, it's a birthday. The day that you matter more than basically any day on the planet. And that's just by virtue of still being fucking alive. You don't have to do anything for your birthday to be special. You don't have to accomplish anything. It's your day. It doesn't matter how many presents people buy you or who comes to your party. Fuck all that. Literally just, it's your day because you conquered. You conquered dying for one more year. And look, a bunch of people died from COVID. A bunch of people died from gun violence in Chicago. Did you die from gun violence or COVID? No, you nailed it. Did you die from diabetes? No, You nailed it. You kicked death's ass this year. Don't look to other people for your elevation. Don't look for other people for your affirmation. Every year that you live, you've beaten the odds. Good job. Happy birthday, buddy. Bill Booty says, Department of Agriculture says feral swine are a climate problem. Fix the climate or cry about 2A lefties. Can't do both. Feral swine are a climate problem. You should definitely cover a pile of tannerite with corn and let the feral swine come to it and then shoot it from a distance and put it on YouTube. That's the funniest shit on the planet. Mulviard says, too much nose on the stream. I'm going to bed. Heart. Mr. Bentham says, Biden made a statement today about Facebook killing people. If Facebook wanted to, could they sue him for slander or something? No, probably not. Also, they definitely wouldn't want to. I was going to do a video on it today, but I run into this too. I came into my office today with the plan of doing three short videos. Nailed it. There's a bunch of topics to cover. I did one. I could not bring myself to do another one. I really wanted to, but I just couldn't fucking do it. I was demotivated. I was tired. I don't know why. I think it's the Discord drama. It really takes it out of me. So briefly on the Discord drama, I had to remove someone from my Discord, which, look, the act of removing someone from my Discord is not a problem. The act of having to engage in a serious nature on the Discord is a problem for me. Discord is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be this great place. You can go and talk about whatever the fuck you want. But someone was so goddamn retarded that I had to remove them from a Discord. And I hate it. I hate it. It goes against literally every principle, fiber of my being. It goes against everything I believe. This person is out there right now trying to ruin my business. They're trying to tell people that they're being removed for speech. Look, you can read all of their speech on my locals post. I'm very transparent about this. This person was a retarded pile of garbage who probably should be shot in the street by the CCP. An absolute fucking Karen and a beta male at best. At best, they're a beta male. But a complete pussy. A complete pussy online. And what ultimately happened is they were so dumb. They were so embarrassing to themselves that they got thrown out of a free speech Discord. Wasn't for anything particular that they said, except one very specific thing. And I know I banned them. Ahmad didn't ban them. Nobody else did. I did it. They threatened my business. I cannot be the grift lord if I allow some fucking puke to threaten my business with false allegations and have that go unanswered. Nope. They were banned immediately. I don't care that they called my mods the N-word or the F slur or whatever. Go ahead. The mods pretty much don't care either, by the way. If you call them those mean words don't hurt most people. Don't care. I didn't even know until after I banned this person. What I did know is that they threatened to go around lying about me to various people to hurt my business. And I said, all right, you don't want to be here? Get the fuck out, you fucking faggot. Get out. I don't care about you. I hope you die in a fire in Minecraft or whatever. Have fun. Get out. Get the fuck out. Just leave. Why would you pay me if you don't like being in the community? I don't get it. I don't understand. If you don't like being there, don't pay to be there. It's you pay to be there. Your mods are gay? Yes, they're mods. We know. That's a whole separate session. That's what the refund was for? No, I look, I'm not going to refund someone who got, they paid for 5 months of locals access. They got 5 months of locals access. There is no refund. Fuck you, pussy. Ooh, give me back my $5 a month. I'm sorry. No. No. Can you imagine? I bought this movie. I didn't like it. Give me back my $20. No. Well, I paid to watch a movie I like. No, you paid to watch a movie. First of all, I've given tons of refunds over the years. I've given tons of free months for people who have fallen on hard times. If people talk to me, believe it or not, I'm pretty good about it. Pretty good about it. That being said, you threaten people, you threaten to harm my business, and then 6 hours later you're like, "Oh, I also want a refund." You've in hell for a fact. No one cares about you. No one cares. No one cares. I'm not going to refund you ever. You got exactly what you paid for. You got the service you paid for. You made the bed. Now lie in it. Oh, are you too fucking bitched and blue pilled to live in the world that you paid for? I'm sorry. Get grifted. Get grifted, you pussy. Go spurk about it on the Kiwi Farms Fediverse. I don't care. Go tell everyone. I don't care. You notice how everybody's saying, yeah, you kind of look really stupid in that? Nailed it. Nailed it. Literally no one cares what you think. And it's great. It's great. The other thing is, it's funny. Oh, I paid for free speech. Your speech is literally never censored. Not once. All of your shit that you said nasty about the mods, about me or whatever, it's all been preserved and posted. No one cares about what you said. It wasn't what you said that did it. It was your literal being a beta baby that did it. Sorry. All right, next. Eric D says, Ron, Nick said Jewish fathers wear the foreskin under the yarmulke for 8 days after the bris. Is that true? I did not say that. Robert Corrales says, ask him the balls question if you haven't yet, Lamau. Sorry, I don't even know what that is. The gray one says, wait, nope, I read that one. Face Lord says, how are you going to play b-ball without a ball? Ball gang represent. The B stands for bussy, by the way. God damn it. IWD, welcome to super lawyer status. Much appreciated. Face Lord says, I apologize for my super chat. Tourette's. Good. And Anthony Simon says, born in 55 and polio was a thing and it was a sugar cube vax. Never knew anybody with smallpox, so I dodged it. Just stay at home on vax day. Not applicable says he also totally ambushed you on it. Kind of glorious. That was about the Gavin McInnes thing. That was about the Gavin McInnes thing. Idio Vamus says, found your channel thanks to your Russell Greer streams. This donation is a long time coming. Moving to Arizona from the East Coast in a couple weeks. Can't wait to watch your streams live from now on. Yes! Yes! Hang out live. Get grifted. Ascot Man says, Nick, have you played Doki Doki Literature Club for game night yet? No, starts tomorrow. That's what I was going to say. Doki Doki starts tomorrow. Ascended, Not So Handsome Jack says, Flash should have let us spend our cash and keep Anna up. He didn't stop you from sending you super chats. You stopped you. Backcoat says, no, we're not good people. We're the chat. Daniel the One says, get Critical Drinker, please. Yeah, I'll invite him. I was on his show. I had a lot of fun. I don't know what to talk about with him, but we can talk about anything. Dash Rendar says, super splat. Ellen Bainling says, here, I'll pay half $1 today. Eric D says, get PPP on for $2 fat jokes to make Ashley revenue. No, unfortunately, PvP will probably not be back on, which is a shame. I enjoyed having him back on, but he is gone. He has gone full weird, And that's his choice, and that's fine. Joel Reese says, you to go to Neurotics Friday Night Tights again. I love being on Friday Night Tights. Fridays in the summer are hard for me. They have not invited me, but if they did, I would probably have to turn it down, because Fridays in the summertime, I go over to my in-laws' house. We do a Friday night grill, and that is right during Friday Night Tights time. In the fall/winter, once it gets cold in Minnesota, I am happy begging to do Friday Night Tights. I love being on there. It's a great show, great people, great topics. So happy to do that, but let's wait till after summer so it doesn't conflict with my family obligations. Ellen Bailing says, just kidding. Here's another $50. He says, all Discord servers are cancer. Changed my mind. Bad Vibe says, wave that law peen around racket, smack them down. Stephen Farrington says, would you hire Ronnie O'Neill as an associate? No. Serious Joker says, Ridge likes that you have wrinkles. This helps them advertise with more emphasis on their product. Smart on their part. Not Applicable says, I don't have faith in chat's adulthood, to be honest. Me either, except demographic analytics from YouTube say otherwise. Scott says, Bricada Law, fake attorney. Cool. Jay says, chat, Civil War. Serious Joker says, I hope after your movie you get to sleep well and peacefully. I sleep well and peacefully most nights. Look, if I look like I'm really tired, it's because I'm really fucking old. Lane 20 says, Alex saved Pepe from liberal maniac. That's got to count for something. Luminaire says, got a Ridge leather keychain. Sadly, nose code doesn't work on that product. Still wanted to do something to support them. I had no idea. That's lame. I will tell my rep, hey, why is my nose code not work on leather keychains? Eldon Bainling says, here's $50 for dropping the F slur. Yokohuna says, dude hid behind freedom of speech is an excuse to be a shithead in chat. When he got booted, he goes full soy rage and cries on the farm sad. Look, he said, this is I don't really want to talk about this guy a lot, especially because tomorrow that's going to be part of the show. But he said, it's your Discord. You do what you want. Well, what I wanted was for you to get raped. That, metaphorically speaking, that was it. And then when I did that, he got really, really salty about it. It's funny. It's amazing. It's amazing how people are like, yeah, you go ahead. It's yours, man. You do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. I want you to get lost because you're a loser who wants to lie about people to my, don't do that. Well, I don't know what you told me to do it. You told me to remove you if you were a problem. You tried to hurt my business, so you were a problem. Because, again, I have a reputation to maintain. I am the Griff Lord. Like, I'm going to take a $5 weirdo over tons of higher tier subscribers? No, of course not. I'm the Griff Lord. Get wrecked. You told me to do this. Then I removed you. Then he has spent weeks in a day chatting about this. It's embarrassing. Blaine 20 says, I think I just subscribe on locals. Good. Blaine, if you need help with that transition, send me a message. All right, guys. That's the end. That's the end of this. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Come over to twitch.tv/Ricada Law. By the way, follow over on twitch.tv/Ricada Law. At 20,000 followers, I will do a yoga grift stream. I will wear yoga pants. I will do all the yoga poses. I will be a yoga thought just for you. And at 30,000, we go into the hot tub, and oh my God, it is going to be hot. So that's that. I'll see you over there. We got a movie night tonight. I don't know what movie we're watching. Sorry. We'll figure it out when we get over there. Have a good night, guys. Peace.
Oh, he
drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some law-splaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an ardbeg, a bow, more a love rug. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear law-splaining tonight. From the white shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have